Hello and welcome to Sunflower Philosophy Tarot. My name is Juliana, and today's Timeless Pick a Card reading is going to be messages from your inner child. So, I will get into the usual centering exercise that I include in each video, but before I do that, I want to explain to you how the group selection will work so that you know how it's going to function and you don't skip that part because it's going to be important in this reading. So today's group selection will be a bit longer than usual as I'm going to go through each group that I have laid out here and go through the traits that came through for each child described. And so you can use that to choose based on what resonates with you, what you feel embodies your inner child or speaks to a part of your life where you are much younger than you are right now. Because I'm not setting the intention to access a particular age or time in your life, but merely one that is from a version of you that is much younger. And for most of you will likely be childhood, as that's the intention I've set. But it will be up to you to determine what time of your life is coming through and what version of you is coming through. So I will, as I said, go through the traits of each group, and you can make your selection based on what feels like it was you, what feels relevant to you, just whatever resonates. As always, use your intuition. So before I do the group selection, I will do a brief centering exercise for those who want to join me to help you get more in touch with your intuition and just feel more grounded in yourself. And after that, I'll get into the group selection. I'll have the timestamps below for that. And I'll have the timestamps for each group just in case you need to go back during a reading and listen again to which group traits you selected, if that makes sense. So I'll have that in the description. But for those of you who are joining me for the centering exercise, let's get into that. So thank you for joining me for the brief centering exercise. Of course, if you are in the middle of driving or doing any kind of activity, you might want to skip this for now and come back when you can just sit and be quiet with yourself. Definitely if you're driving, just pay attention to the road. Don't do this part. But for those of you who are ready to sit and relax and maybe even close your eyes, feel free to just get yourself comfortable and tune in to your breathing. And as you tune into your breathing, just notice if it's deep and slow and even, if it's maybe a little faster, just whatever's going on, just notice. And at any point during this little exercise, if you want to deepen your breath, simply allow your breathing to deepen, allow your muscles to relax all throughout your body and around your rib cage and abdomen, allowing in deeper breaths and a deeply calming sensation. We're just getting in touch. We're just getting situated in our bodies right now. And as you're doing this, as you're noticing your breathing and noticing the flow of breath in and out, if you wish, you may bring your attention to your third eye, the space between your eyebrows, just the middle of your forehead, however you want to conceptualize that. And as you do, simply notice if any particular time of your life, any particular version of you, of a younger version of you, comes to the forefront. So just notice if you at any particular age surfaces, or if you have any sounds, words, images, sensations, or impressions that come up. And if not, no worries. No matter what, just use this time as a time to connect with yourself and feel at peace. So you can let things come to you, but you can also just enjoy being with yourself right now. And as you relax and be with your body in this moment, just remember that you are and always have been perfect just the way you are. Everything that is going on in your life right now simply melts away. Everything else that you could be thinking about or wondering or imagining, it's just all leaving you right now. This time is for you. You are present and connected to yourself. And I'd like you to set the intention now, whether you tapped into an aspect of your inner child now or not. No matter what, I'd like you to set the intention now to tap into the part of your inner child that wants to be recognized at this time during this reading. And set the intention to intuitively select the group or groups that will have the messages that are truly meant for you, that will give you the most benefit at this time. And now that that is all set, I am going to move into the group selection. Thank you so much for joining me for this centering. And let's get over to the groups. Okay, so let's get into the group selection. So as I mentioned in the intro, this is going to be a little bit different than past ones. So I have 5 groups here, first of all. I usually only do 3 or 4, but I felt like doing 5 today. And second of all, we're going to take our time going through each of these groups because I have traits that came through for each group that I want to describe to you so that you can use those to select which group you believe is meant for you. So I'm going to go through the card, the toy, and some impressions that I got for each pile. And when I do that, just tap into whether or not you feel like this pile is for you based on, do you feel like it's describing a past version of you? Or do you feel like some of the things that came through are relevant to things you're dealing with now? Just use your intuition and really feel into what traits, what child feels representative of something that's important for you to know right now. So, of course, as always, you can select more than one group if it calls to you, but let's just get started with group 1. So, group 1 is represented by the fox plushie here, and the 3 of Cups. So, few things that came through for the traits of group 1's child, inner child self. So, definitely, first word I got, friendly. This is a friendly child for sure. A significance maybe with dogs came through, as well as Blue's Clues, specifically the cartoon. I did get the impression for this group that although it's not necessarily for everyone the case, but this may actually be a much younger, like a very young child. So this could be for a lot of people like around the ages of like 3, 4, maybe even younger. Not necessarily for everyone, but that was definitely coming through. Definitely an animal lover here. I also got the sense that for some people, it's like, because I was getting that it could have been a very young child, there was also something about maybe having had blonde hair or lighter hair as a baby or a young child, and then having hair that maybe changed as you grew up, as that happens sometimes. Sometimes babies' hair, gets darker when you grow up. So maybe you had a change in hair color or something that naturally progressed over your life. Also, this is not for everyone either, but there's a potential for some of you that you, as a child, grew up in a house with maybe some alcoholism or alcohol abuse. So, that's something that also came up. So obviously, if that's for you, you'll know. I also got the color pink, could have been significant, and tomatoes. Maybe you really like tomatoes or something to do with tomatoes, and turtles as well. So take that as it resonates. But also water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, not necessarily it's not necessary that everyone who selects this group will have water signs prominent in their chart, but that could be confirmation for some people. And of course, the animal of fox, also plushies, if you really liked stuffed animals and general animals, came through as important. So yeah, take all of that. And now I'm going to move on to describing group 2. So group 2 is represented by the green Play-Doh and the Six of Wands tarot card. So the Six of Wands, with everything that's coming through here, first of all, the first word I got was show off in a very playful way. I feel like there's a very showy energy that's coming through in this card. Extroverted. For some people, not all, this could actually be representative of like the preteen or teen years, but not necessarily. Again, it doesn't have to be a specific age range. I also got the color purple as being important. And strong ego, like someone who had a strong ego or a lot of confidence. Maybe not necessarily now, but at the age that is coming through, that seems to be the case. Someone who's very assured of themselves, or at least likes to show off and appear confident in front of other people. Definitely like some kind of eye-catching appearance, may be considered conventionally beautiful at some point, or had their appearance complimented or commented on a lot growing up. For some people, an only child is coming through, or a favorite child, someone who got a lot of recognition, maybe from adults or peers. Chapstick might have been significant to some of you. And also dry skin or hands. So that's for some of you, like maybe as a child or as a younger person, you had a significant experience where you just had a lot of dry skin. That's about it. Of course, the color green could be significant, and of course, fire signs as well. Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, as this is Wands energy. But yeah, definitely very energetic, active kind of child or person coming through here. So that's group 2. Now moving on to group 3, we have this little pet rock that was painted by either me or my sister. I think it was probably my sister. It seems like her handiwork. And we have this 8 of Pentacles here. So we have definitely a hard worker in this group. Studied a lot, maybe. Could have been a high achiever. Or at the very least had some kind of maybe like interest or hobby that they were very skilled at or very focused on, whether by their choice or by the choice of those raising them. Might have had a specific skill set or hobby that you focused on a lot, potentially very nerdy, like very into, maybe very into school, but also maybe very into certain kinds of like reading or books or stories or certain kinds of media, right? And in this group, I mean, this could be for any group as well, but like these are the things that are coming through as significant. In this group, I got a specific reference to ADHD, or potentially having been diagnosed with something that would have you be considered like neurodivergent or something like that. Mostly what was coming through is that like there's an aspect of you that, or this child that would get hyper-focused on certain things, or could hyper-focus on things, but then also might have had trouble, like, it might have swung from one extreme to the other for this child, like, where they were either hyper-focused on, like, one specific thing, or they couldn't focus at all. That was what I was feeling. And then, definitely very intelligent, and also put a lot of effort into certain things. Again, maybe only certain things, maybe not everything, but I think it varies depending on the person. But yeah, that's the vibes I'm getting. Maybe a bit anxious as well, a little bit high strung, or just with the rock here that I selected, a bit of potentially social anxiety as well coming through. Also, we have earth signs, so Capricorn, that hard worker energy coming through, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. Yeah, so yeah, definitely like some of that like analytical, but also maybe a little anxious and neurotic. And I say that with love because, listen, I relate. Energy, but also very hardworking and also very grounded, maybe even a bit stubborn or slow to change, but at the same time, like I said, like very focused or able to focus very singularly on certain tasks or certain things. So that's group 3. Moving on to group 4, we have this like T-ball. It was the game ball. It was mine. I got it. I don't know if anyone here played sports as a kid or played T-ball, but they would give out game balls every game to someone on the team, and everyone would get one eventually. And it was always fun to get to get the game ball. So we have the death card here as well. So I do feel like for this group, first of all, sports may have been significant, baseball, t-ball, softball, any of that, or just any sports, take that as it resonates. But also I feel like this group potentially went through some kind of major life event as a child, or at the age that's coming through. May be a very different person now than they were then, or may feel like there's a big gap between who they were, like might have had a before and after kind of event or time of their life, and that might be the one that's coming through. Might have been considered a bit morbid, maybe like a little goth, especially like in the older, like preteen to teen years, might have had something of a goth aesthetic for some of you. Also, outdoors and nature could be very important here, as well as music. Music is coming through as important. This person might have been considered an intimidating or even potentially a strange child, maybe a bit of an outcast, or felt like an outcast, even if, you weren't necessarily, like you might have just felt very different from people around you. And also, I feel like there's some aspect of you that was very spiritually aware from a young age. Even if you wouldn't have called it that or you wouldn't have thought of it that way, there's definitely, at least the age that's coming through, there was some kind of spiritual wisdom that you had or tapped into that was significant for you. Maybe even one specific event that you had, whether a big life-changing event or like a more internal shift that you had, which shifted your perspective on life and death at a younger age than most people will experience it. And so that could be significant for you as well. Yeah. And the outdoors and nature is coming through again, like something about like running around, playing games, maybe even playing sports. It might be a big part of this time of your life that's coming through here. So that's group 4. And then group 5, we have this, like, it's like one of those things that you use the little wooden dowel to scratch away at the black ink and reveal the colors underneath. So that's what I did here. So we have that, which to me speaks to childhood because we did that in school. And we also have the card, the King of Cups here representing this person. So, just going back to group 4 for a split second. Death card represents Scorpio. So Scorpio energy, the fall, November could be significant. Going back to group 5, King of Cups, also water signs, Scorpio, Cancer, Pisces. But also what was coming through is that someone's father figure could have been very important to their life at the time that's coming through. But also I get the sense that this child, this person, this version of you was very sensitive, but maybe also stoic. So maybe you were very sensitive, this child was very sensitive, but didn't come across as such, or maybe the sensitivity that this child experienced came out in ways that weren't understood always by adults or by the people around them. Could have been an emotional caretaker for others, very emotionally mature for their age, at whatever age this is. A really specific weird thing, maybe someone really liked juice in particular, or had a specific food or drink that they really liked and was important at this stage of their life. Like, maybe a kid who only wants to drink grape juice or who only eats macaroni and cheese or something like that. Strong and silent type, doesn't talk too much or only speaks when spoken to. So maybe a relatively quiet personality. And potentially, like I said, misunderstood or misconstrued as like shy or soft. But again, I was feeling almost like it's like, when I say soft, I mean like maybe some of the people in this group were called like too sensitive or seen as too emotional. But in another way, I could also see this group maybe being misconstrued as not sensitive enough or just insensitive, when maybe they would be actually on the inside very sensitive, but on the outside rather stoic. So either way, there's like an element of potentially having that aspect of their personality misconstrued or misinterpreted, or just misunderstood. So also, the arts could have been like this, could be a very creative child as well. Creative, colorful even in some ways. Yeah, so that is what came through for each group here. So based on those descriptions or anything else, like the objects or the cards or your intuition, feel free to choose your group from the timestamps in the pinned comment or in the description below, and I will see you over in your reading. Hi, Group 1. Welcome to your reading. If you selected the Fox plushie and the Three of Cups card, then you are in the right place. And in case you missed it or just skipped right to the reading, we went over some traits and impressions that I got about your inner child in the group selection. So if you want to go back there and take a look at what I said about each group, just feel free to pause and go back. But just to reiterate some of the things that we said before we get your messages from your inner child, the child that was coming through for me was definitely very friendly, maybe liked Blue's Clues or dogs. Animals were very important, and other things like that. But we're not going to get too far into that because I want to move onto the messages. So if you want to confirm some of the traits of the inner child you that's coming through, just like I said, go back to the group selection and look at Group 1. So Group 1, let's get into your messages from your inner child now. So we're going to see what this child version of you wants you to know, what they need you to know, what's relevant to you at this time, what's going to be the most helpful thing that they want you to know. So Group 1's inner child, what messages do you have for Group 1? What messages do you have for Group 1? What messages do you have for Group 1? Okay. What messages do you have for Group 1? What messages do you have for Group 1? Okay. Group 1's inner child. What messages do you have for Group 1? Let's get 2 more cards, please. What messages do you have for Group 1? Okay. And 1 more card, please. Group 1's inner child. Okay, that's more than 1. Thank you. We'll put that under there. Oh, okay. Knight of Cups and then King of Cups on the bottom of the deck. So we'll put this off to the side over here. All right. Okay, so we have, let me make sure that's all. Yeah, you can see that. We have the Devil, the Ace of Swords, the Ace of Pentacles, the Seven of Pentacles, the Knight of Cups, and then the Seven of Wands, which came out with the Knight of Cups. So I'm keeping them together. So, messages from your inner child. All right, so starting off with the Devil card, I actually feel like this is some kind of message coming to you about your work life, potentially. So I feel like your inner child wants to let you know, I think your inner child wants to let you know that you've got some good ideas where your work is concerned. I don't know what your situation is. It'll vary for everyone. So you could work in an office, and, you know, in a very like typical 9-to-5, or you could have your own business, or it could be that you are looking to transition your career. Maybe you're still studying at this time and you're considering your career, but I think there's something about your career that's important right now, because it feels like your inner child is telling you that you have some good ideas, you have a lot of potential, and they're really drawing your attention to your ideas, to the unrealized things that you have been accumulating, maybe since childhood. So for some of you, you may have ideas that you've been sitting on since you were young. Maybe there are things that you have wanted to create, or maybe you've always just been someone who has a lot of good ideas, who has a lot of potential, who has a lot of things that they want to bring into the world. And I feel like at this time you might not feel like you're at liberty to share those things. Like your inner child, yeah, maybe your inner child is feeling a little bit constricted. Ooh, let me fix that. A little bit constricted by your current work situation or workplace. I feel like it will vary for everyone. So for some people, it could be that you're doing something in your work that you don't really like or aren't passionate about. But for others of you, it could be that you like your workplace or you like what you do just fine, but you might not. You might feel restricted in certain ways still. You might have even inhibitions within yourself that are preventing you from coming forward with certain ideas that you have, that you're meant to share, that have a lot of potential. There's also this message here about, like, there's definitely this sense of accumulation. So it's almost like in some way, whether it's with ideas that you have for work specifically, or even just in your life in general, you might have, in some area, accumulated a lot of either information, resources, knowledge, debt, I just heard for some people, but I don't think that's for everyone. You might have accumulated a lot in some area, and it's time for you to start sharing the wealth, or for you to start chipping away at that supply. Interesting. Because I feel like, okay, it's coming through. Okay, so it feels like for a lot of you, what this is that there's something you've accumulated that is not quite physical yet. Again, it might just be ideas. It might be in your head. It might be thoughts in your head. Things that you have kept inside or that have come to you but are still not in the physical realms yet. You haven't quite manifested them yet. And it's like the accumulation of these ideas inside of you want to come out. They want to be manifested. They want to be created. And it's time for you to start chipping away at this accumulation in the non-physical, in your internal world, in your mind, and slowly bringing them out into the physical. And it might take some time because I think you've got a lot in there to share and a lot to do. And basically your inner child is like, let's get started. Let's pick one and just go for it. So that might be something that also your inner child is highlighting, is that you might have a lot of different ideas. Like you might have a lot of things that you want to act on, things that you're excited about, or even things where it's like that feeling of like, I've got this to-do list, but I don't know what to start with, right? And you might have a to-do list, but I think your to-do list is kind of like fun, like especially with your inner child coming through here. I feel like there's an energy of like, there's a lot of fun ideas or even self-care ideas that would make your life better, or you want to experiment with, you want to try, and you're just like, which one do I do first? Like, for example, I'm getting like someone who has a list of, okay, well, I want to start doing yoga, but I also want to start rock climbing, and I also want to write a book, and I also want to start drawing every day. Like all these different things that you want to do. And you have potential to enjoy almost all, or maybe all of them, any of them even. And maybe there's more than one thing that you will ultimately end up doing. But because you have so many of these ideas and you don't know which one to focus on, ooh, ow, sorry, just bumped the table. You don't know which one to focus on first, you just don't start any of them. And so your inner child is like, listen, let's pick one. Let's do it. It's also possible for some of you that you have actually accumulated a lot of creative works or ideas, or even things involving your career or whatnot, that like that you've made or created but you haven't shared yet. So like an artist who creates a lot of art but doesn't share their art. And so for some of you, you already have things that you've created, but you haven't started to share them yet. So like the specific example I'm getting is like starting an Instagram and just posting one piece of artwork a day, of artwork that you've accumulated. So that for many people might be a metaphor for something else that you haven't shared. But that's the example that came through, right? It's like you've got all this stuff and it's time for you to share it. It could be like monetarily, like for some of you, it's like you've cultivated a whole bushel of like financial resources or something, and it's like, let's use them. Let's have some fun. I think your inner child is like enough of. Okay, that was really creepy. There was just like a thump above my head. I didn't like that. But we're just gonna keep going. Okay? Because I'm home alone, so that's not that's not kosher. That's not cool. But whatever, we're fine. It's fine. It's fine. Anyway, regardless, your inner child wants to have fun. And so it could also be, and this, multiple messages could be true for you, right? So it could be true that you have a lot of ideas that you haven't shared yet, or you haven't tried yet, or haven't started on yet, and your inner child is like, let's go. It could also be that you have some things that you've created that you haven't shared yet, and your inner child is like, let's do it, let's share them. And it can also be that maybe you have been a little like frugal with your like fun, like you like literally you might not want to spend a lot of money, but you have enough to spend on like fun things, or just like spending time doing things that are just for fun. Your inner child is like, let's go. You have all this time that you have that you're not spending doing anything fun. I want to do something fun. You have all this money that you're not spending to do anything fun. I want to do something fun, that kind of thing. And what fun looks like for you, like it's going to be different for everyone. So fun could involve, just reading a book, like at home, fun could involve going out to the clubs. Fun could involve taking a nature walk. Whatever it is, your inner child is like, let's have fun. And that could also be where work is coming through, because you might feel like, oh, I just get up and I go to work, and then after work I'm too tired to do anything fun, so I just don't do anything. But I have a lot of things that I know I could do that would probably help me feel a little bit better. So for some of you might feel like you're in a bit of a funk with that. Totally get it. And here's the thing, it's like fun shouldn't be something that you have to pressure yourself into. At the same time, you might also need to be willing to endure just a little bit of discomfort in order to break a cycle where you are like, wake up, go to work, go home, do nothing, or wake up, go to work, go home, like work out, but like don't do anything that's just purely for your own enjoyment, right? Like you might be in a bit of a cycle like that, and it might feel uncomfortable and yet at the same time more comfortable than like going outside of that at the moment. So you might have to endure a little bit of discomfort in order to get out there, and change the habit, change the pattern. And that is also true for if you're learning to put some ideas out there or get started on working on a new project or something like that. Like there might be some discomfort. You might have some trepidation about actually getting started. But once you just like rip off the bandage, like break through the initial discomfort, it's gonna bring you back to this, I think, this like childlike, almost like a gleeful or joyful energy that I feel like was coming through with the Three of Cups. And this could also be specifically like when it comes to sharing with other people or being around other people. Like, yeah, maybe you've been in a really introverted phase, and maybe that's just part of how you are. But I think that if this is resonating with you, there may be a part of you that's really longing to get back out there and interact with people again, to bring your cup to the party, right? Like not literally necessarily, especially for those of you who really resonate with having been a friendly child at some point. Maybe you don't resonate with that as much now, but there's also an element of wanting to engage again in a playful way with people. And for those of you who feel like you've been stagnant or isolating yourself a little bit, it's time to get back out there. You are up to the challenge. You are ready to put yourself out there again and meet new people and put your ideas out there. And also for those of you who are starting something new, so those of you who have like a lot of ideas that you want to get started on, the Seven of Pentacles here is also about being willing to be patient with yourself, to take a childlike curiosity with the things that you are getting started with, because some of you might have spent a lot of time in environments where you feel pressure to be perfect right off the bat, or you feel like you need to have like a refined idea, a whole plan, like created and perfected before you bring it to anyone else. And this is saying that you cannot take that approach, or you're being recommended to take a different approach with whatever you're looking to move forward with, especially if it's like starting a new hobby or something like that, right? To break free from that mindset of perfectionism, of perhaps wanting things to be perfect before they can be seen, or wanting to be perfect at something before you can actually go out there and experience the thing. It's time to break free from that mindset, to be patient with yourself, to understand that, for example, if you wanted to become an artist and you don't draw, you haven't drawn in years, maybe you don't consider yourself a good artist, but you're like, well, I want to be though, like I want to try it, I want to get into drawing. Okay, so you sit down, you have your pen and your paper, and you draw something, and you're like, well, this isn't very good. Well, I guess I just am not meant to be an artist. All right. Oh, well. But it's like, no. Sitting down and putting in the focused, concerted effort on a regular basis, but even just like having an explore, like finding, first of all, because art is subjective, and so is so much of life, right? So learning to see life in a more flexible mindset. I feel like this is something that maybe the past version of you was very good at. Maybe the past version of you was very forgiving of people's quote-unquote mistakes. Maybe the past version of you, this child version of you, didn't really look at people or at things with that much of a critical eye, but rather a curious eye, or just had fun with things and didn't think too much about it. I feel like that version of you is what's coming through right now to encourage you to have a beginner's mindset at things, to spend time just playing and realize that over time, you won't even notice it, but you'll accumulate enough skill to actually be quote unquote good at the thing that you want to get good at. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be a slog. It doesn't have to be a painful experience. And it can just be something that's experimental. And it will come with time. It requires patience to build the skills that you want to build. And you can do that intentionally while also having fun with it, right? And it's reminding me, because I was getting Animal Lover for this group, right? So it's reminding me of like, if you got a new puppy, would you expect that puppy to just immediately like know how to sit and like know what's good, what's okay for them to eat and what's not? And like, would you be mad at the puppy for, well, you might get a little upset if the puppy like pees on the carpet or something, but you would understand likely that the puppy doesn't know that it's inconvenient for you that it peed on the carpet. Like it had to pee, right? So you would be patient and take the time to teach the puppy, hey, it would be better if you peed over here. And most puppies will be able to learn that with just a little bit of training. But it takes time, and no matter how frustrating it could be at the moment, you also understand it's not the puppy's fault. Like, the puppy's not trying to be a pain. The puppy's not trying to inconvenience you. It just simply doesn't know. And so it's like, you are a puppy. You are allowed to be new and confused and inconvenience yourself and other people when you're trying something new, because you just don't know. I also just got the very specific example of like someone traveling to another country and being really afraid to inconvenience people in that country by not knowing the language very well and having questions, and like say you're lost and you need to get somewhere and you're like, oh, but I can't ask anyone for directions because, like, I can't inconvenience anyone and I'll look stupid because I can't speak the language very well and I don't know what to ask, and, just having a lot of anxiety over that. But, yes, okay, someone might not be very friendly to you, but someone else probably will be, Just because one person is like, ugh, like, dang, foreigner, I don't have time for this today. it doesn't mean that they're right to be like that. That's just how they feel. But that doesn't reflect anything on you. Like, the facts of the situation are, you are new to this country. You don't know the language. You don't know where you are. You do need help. Someone will be willing to help you. Just because someone else isn't, oh well, you're allowed to be that clueless puppy sometimes. Like, yes. And I feel like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But because this friendly, childlike version of you that's coming through wouldn't have been so self-conscious about that kind of thing, about not knowing, about being confused, about needing help, about asking for directions or asking for help with anything. That was a less self-conscious version of you. You're being asked now by your inner child to tap into them again, to use that energy, to have more of an exploratory, childlike glee when socializing, when interacting with people, when presenting your ideas to people, when sharing your artwork or sharing your creations or sharing your ideas or sharing things with people. Like, you were a very friendly child, maybe even the kind of child that would share your toys willingly because you wanted to play with other people. It's like, tap into that energy now as an adult, as whatever version of you that exists now. That will help you in whatever you are looking to create in your life. And it's almost like with this Knight of Cups here and then this King of Cups with the Three of Cups over there, it's like, you might have gone from being like a really unself-consciously friendly child to someone who's a lot more self-conscious because you might be very sensitive and love people, but also like be aware that, oh, well, through life people go through a lot of stuff and sometimes they're not always in the mood to be friendly or to interact with me, or I might hurt someone with my words or this and that. Like, getting very in your head about how to interact with people and how to treat people right and how people treat you, which there's nothing wrong with that. And you might be a very sensitive individual in general, so you can feel into other people's emotions and things like that. But sometimes that can get in your head and inhibit you from living your life and being able to be yourself and not getting so caught up in other people's needs that you don't even recognize your own. And I feel like with the Knight of Cups here, and then the King of Cups being on the bottom of the deck, which I feel like I could have put over here because I think that's like almost where you're headed. This Knight of Cups is like, in order to reach the level of emotional maturity that you are headed towards, it requires you to put into practice some of the things that you might have only practiced in your head theoretically. So like, if you, like, it's almost like you've been through this journey of like, oh, I love people, like people are great, I'm so friendly and I love playing with others, to, oh, I don't want to bother anyone. I'm more aware now of how we all impact each other, and I have new information and new input and things that I've experienced in my life that require me to go inward and reflect a bit more and maybe withdraw from people a bit. And now it's time to take that information, like that time, that processing time that you've spent, maybe even time protecting yourself or protecting others in your view, sometimes, just by being more drawn inward. It's time to take that introspection that you've done and go back out in the world and be a new version of you where you can combine your sensitivity and your awareness, social awareness, with also like an outgoing friendliness and an understanding that at the end of the day, you can't be responsible for everyone else's feelings all the time. You also have to live your life, and that sometimes interacting with someone with the best of intentions will still lead them to dislike you or misinterpret you or misunderstand you, and that's okay. But at the same time, we don't always see where our interactions with people will lead. We don't always see and understand how things will impact people, even if they don't have the best reaction in the moment, right? So it's like, maybe it's not on you to police yourself for the benefit of everyone else, or to hide your ideas or hide yourself or hide your creations or hide or hide your outgoing or friendly nature because you assume that there are people out there who won't receive it well. Like, that's just kind of life, right? And I feel like that's the journey that you're on. You're going to reach this King of Cups. You're going to reach a place of emotional maturity where you can feel responsible for your own emotions and respectful of other people's, while also maintaining your self-respect and maintaining your own energy no matter what's going on around you, being that peace in the chaos, and being confident in yourself again in public and with sharing yourself, right? So yeah, it could be a social anxiety thing, but it could also just be like an anxiety around sharing your ideas and whatnot. Like, and it could, again, specifically have to do with the workplace or a specific environment that you're currently in or are in a lot that might have cultivated some of this anxiety within you. But through that experience, you've been learning and growing, and it's time to get back out there and yeah, share what you have to share. There's something that you have that you can share, whether it's something you've cultivated already or something that you want to cultivate and grow. So your inner child is like, let's do it. So I'm going to get some quote cards to close this out. This is already like longer than I wanted it to be, but it's fine. It's fine. I like this reading. It's fun. So let's see. Group 1's inner child. What else do you want to say? Let's get 3 quote cards. So what else do you want to say? Okay. What else do you want to say? Group 1's inner child. And 1 more. And of course we got 2 more. That's always how it goes. It's fine. Okay. So we have this card. This card. This card. And this card, all black and white. Interesting. Black and white might be significant in some way. Either like black and white thinking might be playing a role here, or the colors themselves might be significant in some way. But let's look at this one first. We have this like little reverse starburst here. And it says, "A life lived in fear is a life half lived." And this is from All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stiefvater. And yeah, your inner child is like, there's definitely some kind of anxiety here, some kind of fear holding you back. And your inner child is like, we can't spend all of our time there. It's like you maybe had a perspective shift that you needed to have, and it might have made you a bit afraid of the world for a time, but there's some wisdom that you've gained from that and things that you've learned from that, and you're ready to let the fear go from whatever you've experienced. We also have Perspective is a Goddamn Son of a Bitch from The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. But also, Perspective is Wonderful from Anne with an E. Both quotes that came out one after the other when I was creating this card, and I had to put them on the same card because they obviously came out like that for a reason. And that reason is illustrating the point that perspective is everything. And if your perspective, it's just being aware of where your perspective is being informed by fear will help you understand where you do have the choice to say, that perspective is informed by fear. What is a perspective that I could take on the situation that is not informed by fear? And see where that gets you. And I feel like the inner child version of you that's coming through right now was pretty fearless, especially in terms, I believe, of socializing and interacting with people socially, because I feel like that is, whether you're holding back on ideas or your own socialization or whatever it is, like whatever is causing you to hold back, I feel like it does have to do with other people and how you interact with them. And yeah, perspective is really important here. And it is something that your inner child is asking you to choose. And they might be asking you to choose to have a perspective that is closer to something that they had when you were that age. We also have this card, which says, "Your only obligation in any lifetime is to be true to yourself." Illusions by Richard Bach. Yes. This is such vibes of someone who's like very sensitive and very aware and very caring for other people, and maybe at one time encountered things that made them withdraw from society or feel like defensive or scared around people for some reason or another. And, potential people pleaser energy here, right? Like, and it's like returning now to, with the wisdom that you have, because it means something and it's important, and perspective is everything, including the perspective that you've gained over your lifetime, but integrating that back in with an aspect of you that existed before any of the fearful parts of that set in, right? Like you went from the innocence of just interacting with the world in a friendly, open, innocent way to the resistance of fear, to realizing that maybe people don't always receive you well, or realizing that some people might consider you an inconvenience or whatnot, like, that kind of thing, which, too bad. Like, okay, with all due respect, I understand life is complicated and nuanced, but that's the thing, is life is complicated and nuanced. You don't have to be a perfect person for everyone all the time. And your child self is like, yeah, remember when your only obligation was just to be yourself and you just did things for yourself, it's like we're tapping back into that energy right now. It's important. We're reintegrating the wisdom that we've gained, the knowledge that we've had, the experiences that we've lived back into, okay, but we're also living for ourselves. And we're also, like, we're allowed to just be us, you know, just go out there and be us. Like, we're allowed to have our own ideas. I'm getting real vibes of, like, someone who's afraid that if they put themselves out there, there will be people who tear them down, who read, like, the worst faith criticism into, like, whatever you say or do. Like, if you put a creative project out there, people will be like, oh, well, this person clearly meant this because X, Y, and Z, but, like, in a negative way, like, presuming that you have bad intentions. And it's like, yeah, because the people who are coming from that perspective have, like, they're coming at it from that perspective. Perspective is everything. Yeah, they can look at it and say, this person's just, you know, out for themselves. This person's just, oh, they were clearly coming at it from this perspective because they're X, Y, and Z. And they, like, people will do that because that's the perspective that they're in. It says more about them than it says about you. You get to decide who you are, especially people who don't even know you or don't even get to interact with you directly. Like, they bring themselves to the world, right? So, you know, you put something out there creatively, someone else looks at it, reads it, watches it, whatever, and has their takeaway. It's like, that doesn't mean that their takeaway is inherently what the project is. It is what it is to you. It is what it is to them, but it's not your responsibility at the end of the day to force another person to have the experience that you want them to have with an aspect of yourself or an aspect of something that you created. That's for them to decide. And you're just putting things out there in this playground of the world to give people things to bounce off of, right? To bounce their ideas off of, to bounce their personality off of. Yeah, they might react badly, but, like, that's on them. Okay? Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I get really frustrated when people don't seem to take responsibility for their own perspective and like to push off that perspective on someone else, like making assumptions about where someone else is coming from without actually knowing, but also not being able to acknowledge that they don't actually know. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all do it from time to time, but like some people are just, you know what I'm saying? The internet. Anyway, we have this card here, which says, expectation wasn't just about what people expected of you, it was about what you expected of yourself. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. Case in point. There's something where you're getting caught up in the expectations of others. You're getting caught up in the expectations that you have for yourself that might have been formed through expectations that other people have created. Like, listen, for some of you, you just need to get off the internet. I'm sorry, but you just need to. Like, your child self is like, I am screaming at you. I need you to listen. I need you to get away from other people's thoughts and feelings and expectations about who people should be and listen to yourself. And it might take some time. Like, some of you just might need this little reminder, this little nudge, like, hey, you might be like getting too in your head right now about other people's expectations and you need to settle back into yourself. Some of you, this might be a long time coming. Like, you might really just need to unplug, and like it might take some time for you to understand what is truly you and what is just other people's garbage. And I say garbage because in this case, I feel like there's a lot of garbage that like other people want to put on you, but maybe not specifically you, just like out into the world, and that you've just taken in because, you know, that just might be what you're surrounded with at the moment. And if you take a step back from it, if you remove yourself from the situation, it'll stop having power over you. You know, you'll start to understand what your true values are, and you'll be able to act from that place, and you'll feel a lot less resistance, and you'll feel a lot stronger in yourself, and you'll feel a lot more able to take other people's perspectives with a grain of salt when you need to. And, you know, also have that built in, like, have both, right? The ability to respect other people and their ideas and perspectives, and also know when it's like, but that one's not for me. We're not going to engage with that right now. I understand where they're coming from, but I'm not going to get caught up in their story. You know, I'm going to take the information in. I'm not going to lose my sense of empathy, but I'm going to have more cognitive empathy rather than like the empathy that comes from feeling and experiencing someone else's experience. Because having both is important, but I feel like at a certain point, you need to be able to tap back into, like, protect your own energy and still be able to mentally say, I understand that, you know, that person's going through something difficult or where they're coming from or whatever. But I also can separate myself enough to keep on doing me, living my life, and know where I truly stand on this outside of someone else's perspective. Yeah, because I feel like you might have been surrounded by or might be in a lot of spaces right now, whether online or in work or in life, where people are very black and white, where people are very extreme, where people are like bad or good or this or that. And it's getting to you. And your like child self is like, we got to step back, you know? We got to snap back. We got to get back into the innocent, friendly, like, I'm going to put myself out there. I deserve a place in this world. I'm also gentle and sensitive, but at the same time, like, I have respect for myself and I know what I'm about. And bring that back to you. Yeah. Because you deserve to take up space in the world and have your own ideas and be true to yourself. And yeah, that's where we're going to close it for group 1. So I hope that resonated. I hope you found that helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment if you want to. And if you're interested, we do offer personal readings on our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com, as well as hypnosis and human design services. Yeah, so I hope you have a wonderful life, and I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye! Hi, Group 2. If you selected the Six of Wands card and the Play-Doh, then you are in the right place, and this is your reading with a message from your inner child. In case you missed it, I did, for the group selection, actually go through all the traits and impressions that I got from this card and just while I was meditating on the group during the group selection. So if you want to head back there in case you just skipped right over here to hear more about some of the traits that came through, I got things like confidence, like show-off energy, like the color purple from this group in terms of like the personality traits or things that were significant for this version of you, this child self that's coming through. So yeah, if you want to hear more of that, go back there. But getting right into your reading, first of all, we are, as I mentioned, tapping into a child version of yourself or a much younger version of yourself. And it'll be up to you to discern what part of your life this aspect of you is coming from. But we will get more into that when we get into the messages. And of course, with the traits that came through in the group selection, that might have given you a clue as well already. So yeah, so let's get into this right away, group 2, and just get some messages from your inner child, from your child self, this younger version of you. Group 2's inner child. What do you want to tell group 2? What messages do you have for group 2? Okay, interesting. What messages? Okay. And one more card, please. What messages do you have for group 2? Thank you. Okay. With the Six of Cups on the bottom of the deck, I'll put that over here. There's more space over here. I'll put it over here. All right, whatever. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right, group 2. So messages from your inner child, younger self. So there's definitely an air of indecision here. So potentially this version of you is coming through because you are experiencing some kind of indecision in some area of your life. This could actually be in the area of family and relationships. And it could be in the area of like deciding what you actually want from your relationships and even deciding what you want for your future. You know, what does your ideal future look like? Does it look like getting married and having 2 kids and living in the suburbs? Does it look like living in a van in the desert? I don't know. Like, what does your joy look like, right? Living in a commune, moving to another country, whatever. Like, there's some aspect of you that is making some kind of decision about your future. And you might feel like you actually have a lot of options, maybe too many options. And it could even be options in the realm of relationships. Like maybe you actually are dealing with like multiple like suitors or like multiple different scenarios in which you could explore a relationship with someone. But you don't know what to choose. Like, you don't know what's really meant for you. It doesn't have to specifically be a relationship either. It could be anything. But there's definitely some confusion and there's definitely indecision. And it has to do with something that you feel or you view will have a big impact on your future and how that plays out. I did mention that the version of you that's coming through had a very confident energy. This is what I mentioned in the group selection. There's a show-off almost kind of energy. There's a really standout kind of beautiful person that's coming through. And I feel like that confidence is important in helping you make this decision, because some of the confusion that might be coming through for you right now may actually be caused by a lack of confidence. So you might not feel super connected to this confident version of yourself that once existed. You might feel a little bit far off from that. Maybe something or life has just happened that sort of dented your confidence in some kind of way. And it doesn't have to be a specific thing that happened. It could just be a process that just happened over life. Life happens, right? But I feel like this aspect of you is coming through because in order to make this decision, tapping into that confident, like, I just got know-it-all, but like, I don't even know if it's know-it-all, but like, there's like, but that ego strength, like you need a big ego to make the decision that you need to make and stick to it. And I don't even know, in this case, whatever your decision is that you're making, I don't even know if it matters what you decide as much as it matters how you choose to go about it. Because I feel like you are someone who can really make anything happen, make anything work, as long as you believe in it and as long as you believe in yourself. So it's less about what you even decide and it's more about how you carry yourself through it. With this fire energy, right, that's action-oriented. With the Six of Wands, I mean, that's recognition, getting recognized for yourself, for who you are. And Leo, Aries, Sagittarius, especially Leo and Aries energy really like coming through strong, of like, first of all, Leo being like the sun, being like the center of the universe, liking to show off, being very generous with, themselves and everything like that, their personality, radiating that light. And Aries being very self-centered in like I am this, I know who I am, and very focused on like their own path and being a trailblazer, right? It's like you are taking the lead through channeling this energy of this version of yourself that existed, that even if you don't remember it, like you don't have to consciously be like, oh yeah, like I was really confident as a teenager, or I was really confident as a 5-year-old. Like you don't even have to consciously remember what time this is in your life, as much as you're being encouraged to assume that you were at one point and tap into that energy and really feel that vibe, because it's going to help you make decisions with confidence. This even could be referring to some kind of general problem that you might have with indecision at your current age, at the current stage you are, where maybe it's not even a specific decision, it's just like all decision making feels like a lot for you, and it's just kind of like, you gotta just, in the moment, don't overthink it, make decisions based on what confident you feels is right. Yeah, it's all about confidence. Like you are just, there's a major ego boost here that's needed for you. It's very straightforward actually. But again, like, and actually, I feel like this Seven of Cups flipped over in reverse at first, but it doesn't really matter. Reverse or upright, I'm getting the same vibe of like indecision, confusion, overwhelm even, like not knowing where to go, not knowing what choice to make, feeling like a lot rests on the shoulders of the choices that you make. And on this side, like wanting to have a happy future, wanting to move forward with strength and optimism. Yes, it's confidence. Confidence requires optimism. You have to be optimistic about who you are, about where you're going, about the options presented to you. So, yeah, it's less about making the right choice, quote unquote, and more about getting yourself into the mindset, into the vibe, into the energy of someone who never makes the wrong choice, because you couldn't possibly do that because you're confident enough to move through life knowing that everything is working out for you. Like, yeah. So if you're someone who's been afraid to have too big of an ego, or you've been afraid to step up and just be strong in your decision and just say, hey, this is my life. And for some of you, you might feel like there's judgment from outside of you. Like you might be hyper aware of like, oh, there are people watching me make a decision and I feel like I have to make the right one. Or like, oh, well, if I make this decision, then this person in my life will judge me or they won't think it's the right decision. No. No, we're not doing that. No. It's like you are stepping into your I am, your moment to stake your claim on your life and say, these are the choices that I'm making. You don't have to, no one else has to understand them. No one else has to validate them. You are finding your confidence to be yourself, to make your choice, and to not go back on that choice and be like, oh, I'm so stupid, I shouldn't have done that at the first sign of trouble. No, because you're redefining what trouble even means, right? Like you're confident enough to get through challenges. You don't come across a roadblock, a perceived roadblock, and say, oh God, like I shouldn't have gone this way. Oh, I gotta go back. No, you're like, oh, okay, interesting. How can I get around this? Or is there another way that I can go that will get me where I want to go faster? Or, oh, what's this teaching me? Oh, exciting. Oh, or you don't even see it as a roadblock because maybe you're confident enough to have the perspective of like, things just don't faze you like that. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're tapping into here. That's what your inner child wants to bring to your attention. They want you to strut around like the confident 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old that you once were, that you might not remember, or if you do remember it, you might cringe at. You might think, oh, I thought I was all that back then. I was so stupid for thinking that. No. Listen, okay? Someone taught you to judge yourself that way. Society taught you to judge yourself that way. Society doesn't like confident people because confident people don't need to be led or told that they need to buy this because they'll be better this way, or they need to do this thing because that'll help them achieve a happy life, or they need to follow this set of teachings because that is the only way that they're going to get into heaven or something like that. Like, listen, confident people can't be led, okay? So think about that. Like, if you were taught that, and look, I'm not saying, I understand that we can have a bit of, like you might have had your ego knocked around a bit, right? Like, you thought you knew it all at some point, and then you learned, oh wait, there's a new perspective I didn't consider, and I feel stupid now for having the old perspective that I had. And I get it, like, and yes, it's great to be open-minded to others' perspectives and open-minded to the ways that life can change, or maybe realizing that what you thought you wanted, well, actually, there's a different version of that you actually want, or that's not the end-all be-all. Yes. That is a normal, natural part of life. And it's not to get rid of that. We're not talking about being pig-headed or stubborn or committing to something and then not being able to pivot because you see it as a failure if you pivot at all. No. You're confident enough to make a choice and be confident that the next choice that you make and the next choice that you make and the next choice that you make will continue to lead you on the path you're meant to be on. And you're confident enough to say, this choice that I make, it doesn't have to be the end-all be-all. It's the choice I'm making now, and it's going to lead me on an adventure that will be interesting and fascinating, and I don't have to think in terms of right and wrong. I don't have to think in terms of I'm smart or I'm stupid. You think in terms, you don't even have to, like, just do it, right? Just go for it, right? Like, you're just living your life, right? You have the confidence to just live your life without overthinking it, without feeling silly for having a different mindset, like, for going through an experience and gaining perspective through that experience. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You're not stupid for not having the perspective that you have now. Like, you're not stupid for changing your mind, right? Just imagine with me for a moment that you know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that every desire that you have, every decision that you make for a reason. You have that desire for a reason. It's meant to be. And so no matter if that desire changes, no matter if you make a decision and then you decide, okay, like, now let me make a different decision in the future, that led you there. You were supposed to have that experience, okay? In the specific example of, say, choosing a life partner, a suitor, to pursue a relationship of some kind, because we've got the Seven of Cups with the Knight of Cups here, so, like, the idea of, like, having options in love, right? And what option do you choose? Let's use that as a specific example. You're like, oh, I want to pursue a relationship, but I don't know if this is the right person. Well, it's like, what is the right person anyway? Like, are you interested in this person? Are you attracted to this person? Is there something that draws you to them? Explore it, you know? Do you have fears? Okay, where are those fears coming from? You know? Yes, look at that. You know, don't deny concerns that you have, but don't be afraid to look at them. Be like, okay, that's part of the journey. So let's figure out where it's coming from. Is it coming from a legitimate fear because maybe, you know, because I know, like, people are always afraid of being hurt or that someone's dangerous for them, right? But then there's also, like, the fears that come from insecurity, that come from deep-seated things that aren't even to do with the person that we're dealing with, but to do with our own insecurities and our own past. Be curious about it, right? Be confident enough to take that first step to go on that journey. To make a decision and then say, it doesn't have to work out in a particular way for me to have made the quote-unquote right decision, because I make every decision that I make right. You know? Like, have that big of an ego again. And be confident enough to do that and know that, like, you're not going to get too big for your britches. You're not going to, like, go crazy with power. You're going to be able to change your mind when your mind is meant to be changed about something. And you're going to be able to know when if something runs its course, if something needs to change, or if something is just perfect the way it is. Like, you will know, but you don't have to know right now. You're not meant to know right now. So you've got to have that big, I almost said that big fucking ego, but I'm going to say it, that big fucking ego, to just go and make the choice and do the thing and live your damn life. Okay? Okay? Have the ego that I have to like, swear on the internet and just say all the things that I do. Because, let me tell you, it took me a while to get to the place where I was like, you know what? Fuck it, we're just gonna do that, right? But it feels pretty good to do that, actually. I enjoy it, and it's a new experience. I think a lot of you just need to tap into this energy of just, like, confidence in yourself, confidence in the choices you make, and the spirit of adventure, of just going forth and doing the thing, and taking any recognition you get, good, bad, ugly, as part of the journey, part of the adventure, and have fun with it. And be like, yeah, I am that bitch. Like, yeah, people talk about me. They say all kinds of things. Good, bad, doesn't matter. Like, you know? And just let yourself live for once, you know? Yeah, don't get so caught up in right and wrong. Like, whatever version of you were tapping into was not concerned with that. They just wanted to have fun. They just wanted to be seen. They just wanted to, like, live their life. And, like, yeah, no, again, like, you can trust yourself. You can be a compassionate and intelligent and modest person. You can have humility and also just, like, be confident. Have an ego sometimes. Enjoy just living your life, making your decisions for yourself, seeing where things lead and not getting too caught up in whether or not it's going to work out in one way or another. Just, like, living in the moment and just, like, doing your thing because you want to do it. Very nice. Very nice. I like this energy that your younger self is bringing through. So let's just get a few more messages from them, just some cool cards to close it out. So group 2's younger self, group 2's inner child. What closing messages do you have for them? Let's get 3 quotes. But of course, you know, if there's more, it's fine. So what do you want group 2 to know? Okay. All right. We're going to go with that. It's 4. All right. I guess I asked for 3, but the number today is 4. So we have this card, this card, this card, and this card. Ah, yes. Okay. Wait. I'm going to do it like this. No, I'm going to do it like this. Okay. Beautiful. So we've got the little sprout here with, you still have a lot of time to make yourself be what you want. There's still lots of good in the world, from The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Yes. So yeah, again, like the confidence to have patience, the confidence to just be like, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to see where it takes me. And I'm going to have confidence that I'll make the most of this road no matter what. Yes. Like you can just say that and just live your life. You can just do that. This tooth here with, I'm as solitary as a pulled tooth, lonely as an unwelcome truth, lost as a minnow out of school, a genius in a crop of fools. From Ferris by Gail Carson Levine, which I feel like, yes, that can be almost the shadow side of holding yourself apart from other people. So that's where like the ego, like the confidence, the ego thing, that can be out of balance. So maybe what you found was in the past, you had this really strong confidence, this self-confidence, you weren't afraid to stand out and show off. But it might have led you to feel a bit lonely because other people either were intimidated by that or put out by that. Or you felt almost like it got to your head in the sense of you felt like no one else could live up to your expectations. No one else could live up to you. So there could be an aspect of that that's coming through that's also letting you know, like, it's okay to be confident, be in your ego, like really enjoy like, you know, living life on your own terms and trusting yourself and being confident in yourself, while at the same time welcoming the idea that other people are also all that, right? Like there are people who meet you where you're at. In fact, people are maybe even more capable of that than you've given them credit for, right? Because there's like a way that you can set yourself apart by feeling like a genius in a crop of fools. If you are only able to see other people around you as fools, then you're going to feel pretty lonely. You're not going to be able to see the genius in other people. So this is definitely a wake-up call for you to open up to seeing the genius in other people, seeing the amazing person that you are mirrored back to you in the people around you. Open up to that. And if that's something that you don't feel like you're struggling with, or that's why you shut down your like ego or your self-confidence in the past, revisit that and do so with the idea that you're taking everyone with you. You're not just taking yourself into this confidence. You're having that kind of confidence in yourself and others, whether they have it in themselves or not. You're seeing that, right? And you're making the choice to see that it reflected at you in the world. And again, also having the time and the patience with yourself to be like, I don't need to be right. I don't need to be amazing. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to live my life. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I'm going to make the most of it. I don't have to hold myself apart from the group as a genius. Also at the same time, yeah, like maybe you're like, oh, I don't make foolish decisions like those other people. It's like, maybe you do. Maybe you're allowed to. Maybe you're allowed to. And maybe you'll find through making those decisions that judging those decisions as foolish isn't really the whole story, isn't actually what it is. Maybe you can redefine that for yourself. Yeah. Which is actually incredibly empowering, you know? And that's a wonderful way to live. I think I want to take this unicorn before I take that one. Because it's like we have the lonely sprout. We have the lonely tooth. We have the unicorn, the one who stands out from the crowd, right? The unicorn. Like, I think you are a unicorn, but you're also learning how to see everyone as a unicorn, right? Everyone as varied and unique and beautiful in their own ways. And no one better than another, but rather all unique individuals that stand out in their own ways. And like judgments that you cast upon certain traits within yourself or certain traits within other people are simply that, judgments. But there's always another perspective that you can take. You can see someone who is different than you as equally wonderful, just different, you know? And with this unicorn here, which, I don't know, could be an important symbol for some of you, love me a unicorn. It says, because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. Let me read that again. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world, our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. from Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. Yeah, so you're getting out there and you're daring greatly and you're taking your steps not from a place of perfectionism, because maybe this part of you that was so recognized, I think you're someone who had a lot of recognition, maybe from a young age, whether from people around you, who raised you, or like your peers. Maybe you were very like popular, even though, I don't know, was that even like a thing, or was that just something that Hollywood made up? I don't know. But yeah, in some way you were popular, maybe. And I think that made you very lonely, because people were either really jealous of you, or it got to your head and made you feel like you had to be perfect all the time so people will like you. So you have to be this like show-off kind of person all the time. Or like you have to be amazing because everyone says you're amazing, so you have to keep being amazing. There's a lot of pressure that was put on you, intentionally or not. You felt a lot of pressure, and you might have put a lot of pressure on yourself, and that's why you get stuck in this indecision. Because you don't trust yourself, because you're like, oh, if I make this move, other people aren't going to understand it, and then I'm not going to be recognized the way that I was. People are going to see how imperfect I really am, or how stupid I really am, or whatever. But you're starting to see, and I think you're just being reminded here from your inner child, from your younger self, that being your true, full, imperfect, quote-unquote self, you find that you're no different from anyone else, but also you see the beauty and the uniqueness in every single person around you. And you can take both of that, you can take that within you and make your decisions with more confidence from a place that is less, you don't have to be right. Explode the idea of right and wrong. Explode the idea of right and wrong. Live your adventure, be your full self. Just be like, okay, like I want to do this thing because why? Because I want to do this thing. I want to make this choice because why? I want to make this choice. I want to because I want to. I want to because I want to. Let's see where it goes. Let's see where it leads. I'm not doing this because it's going to lead me to this specific destination. I'm doing this because I want to, and we'll see. I don't know where it's going to go. Let's see. And we have this card, which, again, this could be about deciding, like, on a relationship or something like that. I don't know. It says, a guy that'll really listen to you, listen and care about what you're saying is something rare. From The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Yeah, that unicorn. There's definitely, like, a rarity thing here happening. And I think, again, with that, first of all, the scarcity mindset around, like, finding someone who will match me or finding someone who will respect me in the way that I want them to is a rare thing that probably won't happen. Like, you know, not really believing that it can be, but hoping for it, but it's not really believing in it. It's like we're exploding that perspective and we're starting to see people and the world in a way where people exceed the expectations that we might have once placed on them. That if you're starting to see certain personality traits, certain aspects of yourself in a different light, you're also seeing other people in a different light and recognizing where maybe people can live up to your expectations. Maybe people already are. Maybe some of the feeling that they aren't or that you aren't is something that's in your brain that's telling you that, but it's not actually the reality. Maybe it's a distortion, an illusion that is brought on by something that happened or a way of living that you experienced when you were younger that has caused this distortion in you that you're now, I think, for a lot of you, already aware of, becoming aware of, in the process of untangling. That's, again, causing indecision, causing you not to trust yourself, causing you to be afraid of making the wrong choice, causing you to not trust other people to be on your level, and then at the same time, maybe also feeling like you're not on anyone else's level, and like you'll never, like, yeah, feeling like a rarefied unicorn that doesn't have anyone who will ever be right for them in any kind of way. But that's not true. It's a matter of perspective. And your younger self is wanting you to know that. Is wanting you to know that you never had to be that person that was perfect. You never had to be that person for people to love you. All you have to be is yourself. And you might have some issues, for lack of a better term, from the past based on feeling like you had to be perfect or a certain way, but you don't. You are just as you are, and you're allowed to make all kinds of crazy decisions that those other people make that you don't make because you're better or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, You can make those decisions too. You can be that person too. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with anyone else. Yeah, there's definitely an ego issue here, but it's one that I'm not judging, first of all. I want you to know. I get it. And it's just like the double-edged sword of ego, right? The part that boosts you up will be the very part that tears you down. And you can use the ego as a tool. You can use that part that boosts you up to help you move forward with confidence and help you keep yourself safe. And at the same time, recognize that when it starts tearing you down or when it starts tearing other people down as a way of protecting you, you don't have to listen to that. You don't. And you won't. I think you might have become aware of this aspect of yourself, and that might be why you're cautious, because you don't trust yourself, because you recognize that you can swing wildly back and forth between perspectives, or because you feel bad that sometimes you might put other people down in your head, or that you might put yourself down in your head. But it's nothing to feel like sorry about. It's just a mechanism that as you become more and more aware of it, you can just divert it, just be like, oh no, we're not going to go down that road. Oh, no, we don't need to bash someone else. Oh, no, we don't have to boost ourselves up in this moment. We're perfectly fine as we are. Oh, no, we don't have to worry about making the wrong decision here or being stupid. We're perfectly fine as we are. We are confident. We are strong. We make decisions that we want to make, and we see where they lead. Yeah, because I do feel like you are very powerful. I do feel like you have a lot that you do bring to the world. I think that, it's not that any recognition that you've received in your life has been incorrect. It's not that. It's just that it does weird things to a person sometimes to be so loved or to be put on such a pedestal. And that might just be something that you've had to learn through. With the Six of Cups here, there's also something about maybe your older self is almost bringing this wisdom to your younger self. Like this, I was intending like more for the inner child to be bringing a message, but it also in this message might be like almost like what you've learned now, reaching back into your past and bringing this knowledge to your younger self so that your younger self can sort of heal from maybe perfectionism, from feeling lonely, feeling ostracized, even in a positive way, right? Feeling like a unicorn, feeling like a genius in a crop of fools, and yet at the same time, like, feeling like you need to connect with people and not knowing how, right? Like, that kind of thing. Like, I feel like that's maybe what the Six of Cups is, as well as, like, coming to an understanding with your younger self, right? And also maybe being easier on your younger self if your younger self did get caught up in ego, whether you got caught up in one extreme or the other, or both, like the extreme self-love to the extent that you were self-centered and you felt selfish, versus the extreme self-hatred where you were also self-centered and also like in a bad mental place, right? Like whatever your situation was, if you experienced one or the other or both, you're coming to an understanding with that younger self now. You're being like, hey, listen, like, I see the value in what you experienced. I see the value in the traits that you had then. Here's what I've learned. And here's how we're going to move forward. Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. A lot of introspection happening here. And I'm shedding light on why things are the way they are, why you are the way you are. No shame in anything, but I feel like moving forward, yes, make your decisions with more certainty in yourself. Not certainty in your decision, certainty in yourself. Knowing that you can handle anything. And you don't have to be perfect, and you're allowed to just live your life, People don't gotta understand why you do the things you do. You don't have to stay on any kind of pedestal in order to be valid. You can validate yourself. Amazing. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna close this out now. I hope all that made sense because it was a really cool message and I appreciated it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope it resonated. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. If you're interested in a personal reading, we do offer those on our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com, link in the description, as well as hypnosis and human design services. And I hope you have a wonderful life. I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye. Hi, if you selected the pet rock that I believe my sister painted when we were kids, and this Eight of Pentacles, then you are in the right place and this is your reading. Now, I did, during the group selection, go through a list of traits and impressions that came to me about this group. So if you missed that, go back and check that out, just to make sure this resonates with you. And also, if you want to know more about the child self that is coming through for this reading for you, it came through with things like hard worker, that maybe you were studious or a nerdy person, maybe even neurodivergent. But yeah, if you want to hear more about that, go back to the group selection and check that out. But let's get right into the messages now, because we're going to get some information on why this inner child version of yourself, why this part of you is coming forward to you right now. What is this part of yourself wanting to tell you? You know, I believe I mentioned this a bit in the intro, but the purpose of communicating with your inner child is, it's recognizing that no matter whether you remember all of your childhood or your younger years or not, however you feel about them, those parts of you happened and they exist, and sometimes they are still active even as we grow older. And they might also have some wisdom for us. They might have some messages for us about things that we're ready to let go of. They might have some wisdom for us about how we can approach things in our adult life. And it's always interesting to see what these parts of us have to say. So let's ask Group 3's inner child. What messages do you have for Group 3 today? What is important for Group 3 to know from your perspective? Ooh. Okay. We've got the Page of Swords. We've got the Queen of Cups. We've got the Eight of Pentacles again. Look at that. Look at that. Love that already. Okay. And what else? We've got 2 more cards. Got the Hanged Man. Okay. And 1 more card. Please, inner child. What? That's too many. What else do you want to say here? Okay. Okay, of course there's 2 more. Wheel of Fortune and the Fool coming out together. We'll put them like this. Okay. Wow. Hangman, Wheel of Fortune, and the Fool over here. Interesting. Okay. Group 3's inner child. What do you want to say? King of Wands on the bottom of the deck. Interesting. Okay. So first of all, with the Queen of Cups here, a mother relationship might be important, either presently or the dynamic you had with your mother growing up, or a female guardian of some kind. It doesn't have to be for everyone necessarily, but there's definitely something here. With the Page of Swords, I feel like there's a sense of holding back, or someone who maybe isn't confident with their communication skills yet. And this could be a past energy. This might not be you now, but maybe something about that from your past is coming up. Maybe even something about a dynamic with an older woman had some kind of influence on how you communicated with other people or how you felt about your communication. I'm almost feeling 2 different vibes. Like maybe on the one hand, for some of you, there was a mother figure who caused or exacerbated some kind of insecurity you had about your communication skills. And on the other hand, it could be that there was some kind of mentor or mother figure for you that helped you with your communication skills, maybe brought you out of your shell a little bit. Regardless, there's definitely something being highlighted here about, I feel like, and this might even be your past self, this like holding back, this insecurity when it comes to communication. And I do feel like, I almost feel like there's this energy right now with the Eight of Pentacles coming out again, right under the Eight of Pentacles. That's so cool. I feel like almost like there's been some kind of resolution, or you're in the midst of some kind of resolution with some of your old insecurities, or like an old perspective you had on yourself that is no longer causing you insecurity or something like that. Like you almost recognize the value of who you were as a child at whatever age is coming through. It's almost like, I feel like there's a recognition or an emphasis on the skills that we had as a child that may have been overlooked, or we might have felt insecure about, or might not have always seen the value in, are actually tools that we can use now to help us in our current life is what I'm getting. It's like you are almost seeing your ability to, maybe like I said in the intro, in the group selection, that some of you might have been diagnosed with some kind of like ADHD or something like that. Like you might have been considered, it might be considered neurodivergent, and at the time of growing up, this could have been seen as a weakness by others around you or even by yourself. But at the same time, you can now see the value and the strengths in the way that your brain works differently. Whether you're diagnosed with anything or not, you might function differently than other people. You might, in some way, whether it's cultivated or just something that came naturally to you, you might have this ability to get really down and focused in your work that maybe not everyone has, that is serving you well in your current environment. And if this is something that maybe you've suppressed, this is letting you know that this will serve you well if you allow it to exist without judgment. But I think for a lot of you, like, it feels like for a lot of you are still who you were. Like, nothing about you haven't, if anything, for this group, whatever age is coming through for you, it feels like you haven't really, it's not that you haven't changed as a person. We all change and we all grow, but it's almost like what's made you fundamentally you hasn't really left you. And it's almost like, even if you were always different, I was getting a sense of maybe being a bit different, maybe being a bit socially anxious as well, in the sense of like knowing you were different, but like not knowing how to accept that about yourself or not understanding why. And it's almost like, even if you felt outside pressure to conform, you never really did. So you're still that person. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing, because there are a lot of strengths that come along with that. And some of the difficulties you might have experienced were more from outside pressure rather than from a need to change something about yourself. Because we have the Hanged Man here, and to me, like, there is a perspective shift that perhaps has happened for you around who you used to be, that has brought you to a place of more peace and happiness with yourself and with your past, with who you were growing up. Okay. Okay. So I was getting like I said, potentially neurodivergent in some way, maybe a bit nerdy, maybe a little geeky, maybe into, like, really into certain things, right? Maybe you're someone who, and like, listen, I know this vibe, I've been there, who's gone through like phases of intense obsession with certain things, like having really like special interests in things and things like that. And maybe sometimes you were a little insecure about this, because there's a lot of stuff, if that's not you, if you're someone who's felt like, why would I feel insecure about that? I'm just living my life, right? Like, don't take that on, keep doing what you're doing, keep living your life, have a good time. If you're just having fun and getting into the things that you're into, and it's all good, don't worry about it. Don't take on the insecurities that other people try to put on you. But for those of you who like have felt insecure about like things like that, about being into things and like maybe being perceived as like a geeky person, even though it's kind of cool now, the version of you that was growing up might have felt like you were weird and you didn't want to be perceived that way. But now you're like, I think there's, okay, either you've already come to this perspective shift and you're like already at more peace with yourself and realizing, hey, I was always fine the way I was and nothing wrong with, the things I'm into and just the way that I live my life. But for some of you, you might be, this child version of you might be coming through to be like, hey, it's time to learn to accept ourselves. It's time to just have fun, like be the fool again, be innocent in the way of just enjoying what you would like, just liking what you like, honestly. It's funny because I actually started, just while I was like making some soup before I started this reading, I just clicked on an old ContraPoints video that I watched a while back on cringe and, the concept of cringe culture and all of that. And if that's not a vernacular that you're familiar with, it's really just like, you know, cringing at people or at yourself for like being into certain things or being like socially unaware, or it's like, you know, secondhand embarrassment, but then also sometimes it can be more malicious in terms of like judging and shaming people for the things that they like, typically because you're also judged and shamed for the things that you like. And it feels like that could be relevant here in the sense that maybe a lot of you had that experience of like feeling like cringing at your younger self, or feeling like other people did that to you. And if that's the case, first of all, I'm sorry that you experienced that. But second of all, you're being called upon to let that go, because you are not here to be, you're not here to just like be like everyone else or be shamed into behaving in a way that other people find socially acceptable. Now, I mean, obviously, taking into account that, you know, we want to care about people's feelings and we want to care about people's safety. And so, like, obviously, I mean, like, in the sense of, yeah, we don't want to just go around, like, hurting people and being like, I'm just living my life. Like, you know, you can do that, but other people aren't going to like that, and you'll probably end up in jail. So don't do that. Don't hurt people, right? But at the same time, like, sometimes people are just innocently living their lives, being into the things that they're into, enjoying the things that they enjoy, getting really, like, nerdy about stuff, and other people still are uncomfortable with that and don't like it and, like, put it down, and that's not cool. You should be able to just live your life and do what you want and like what you like, you know what I mean? So, it's also possible for some of you, this Eight of Pentacles here is denoting a way that maybe in order to avoid certain social interactions or insecurities, you've used school and or work as like a distraction, as a way to avoid those things. And as a way to avoid looking at maybe areas where you felt insecure, where you've held back, even like using work or school as an excuse to not socialize, like not go hang out with friends, to say no to plans. And again, I feel like this is coming up because there's some kind of perspective shift that you're having or about to have about your social skills, about socialization, that is leading you to a new start in that area where you will feel freer to just go about your business, being yourself, and also interacting with people with more confidence. It's almost been a bit of a theme in the reading so far, where like the way that you interact with other people has come through for everyone, but in slightly different ways. And this feels like for you, it's really less about your relationship with other people and much more about your relationship with yourself that will change how you experience the rest of the world. And so if you do feel like there have been places where you've, maybe times in your life where you've used work or even used certain interests as coping mechanisms, as ways to avoid yourself or ways to avoid other people, that is coming to an end, in the sense that if you've had if you feel like you've had a negative relationship with these kinds of things, that negative relationship is coming to an end. It's keeping the strengths that those interests bring you, that the ability to lose yourself in your work or lose yourself in an interest of yours brings you. It's like keeping the strengths that includes, but also losing some of the, like, losing the negative edge, the part of it that feels either maybe like addictive or like a coping mechanism that holds you back in any kind of way, right? And of course, if you feel that way about your life, you'll know that it applies to you. So this isn't to make you feel any kind of way about things that aren't a problem in your life. This is only for the people who feel like, yeah, I've been stuck in a rut. I've been feeling like something's wrong or not right, or I really want to shift my relationship with myself and the world. And that is coming to you. And in a way where it's like this hangman, this is a perspective shift, right? So it's not necessarily about you making specific changes within your life. It's just a mindset shift, really, that will allow you to maybe take some pressure off of yourself that you might not have even realized was playing in the background. And this pressure could have come from, yeah, like a mother figure or a like female figure in your life. Oh, it could be, okay, so there's multiple things happening here. First of all, yes, there could be some kind of pressure with a female figure in your life, like a mother figure, and it could be around socialization. So it could be like, when are you going to get out of your room and go hang out with people? Oh, do you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, significant other yet? You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, you could have been someone who's experienced a lot of that, and maybe in your case, like, even though there's nothing wrong with not being interested in that or with the way you are, you might have felt pressure to change, but also didn't know how. So you just kind of have felt like shame for the way that you were when it came to like social situations and things like that. But for others of you, it also might be a holding back from some kind of like connection with a woman in your life in some way because of a lack of confidence, maybe linked to the way that you feel like you were perceived when you were growing up, that led you to feel not good enough to interact with this person, or in general, like women in general. I mean, if like the specific scenario is like that's coming to mind is like the very, listen, bear with me for a minute. I don't like to be like stereotypical about people because we're all so much more than the archetypes that we could that we see on TV or the archetypes that we apply to ourselves sometimes. But maybe, for example, what's coming to mind is like the archetype of like a quiet, like nerdy boy who's not confident enough to talk to a girl, right? And like this could apply to any kind of gender dynamic and any kind of person. Like it doesn't have to be like a nerdy archetype, although I know that's what we're talking about in this reading. But like the example of like getting really caught up in the idea that, oh, I am this kind of person and that person is that kind of person, and so it wouldn't work out between us, or I don't know how to talk to that person because we're like a different species, right? Like almost like there was some kind of perception that you had, or maybe people in your life had, that social structures were very rigid and couldn't easily be crossed, even though I don't really believe that's actually true, right? But that could be something that you grew up believing, and so it's hard for you to break free from that conception of yourself that like, oh, someone like me can't easily interact with the world. Someone like me could never be in a relationship with someone. Someone like me could never, talk to someone like that, whether in like a romantic context or just a friend context. And it's not so much, again, like, I feel like this is more about a perspective shift you're having around yourself and around the world. Like, it's not so much about like, oh, this is what I have to do to change my relationship with other people. It's more like you change your relationship with yourself, everything else falls into place. You like step out of this avoidance that might be happening. You step out of, and it's like, it's not even like about like stepping out of the avoidance, like strategically. It's like not even, yeah, there's something where like maybe you've tried to be strategic about these things, or you've thought like, okay, the only way that I can go about life is to be really strategic about it because of the way that I am. The person that I am, the archetype that I've been that I fit into. I need to develop these strategies and ways of interacting with the world because that's the only way that I'm going to be able to like have the relationships I want, be the kind of person I want to be. Is I have to like study how people interact and then apply that. I can't just like go out and like make a genuine connection with someone through my own merit. Like I need to be good enough. I need to form myself and mold myself in some way. And like I don't feel like you've been very successful at that. I'm gonna be blunt. And I don't mean it in a way where I'm like, oh, you should be. I mean it in a way where it's like, no, I don't think that you I don't think, there's no should, first of all, but second of all, it's not necessary. And in fact, I feel like the real you, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you're fine just the way you are. This perspective shift is leading you to realize that and then just, like, interact with the world accordingly without the strategy. Like, and it might be that at first you start applying some of the things that you've learned. Maybe you do. Maybe you are currently studying something that will help you, that you feel like will help you be the person that you want to be, or bring in something into your life that you've been wanting to bring in. Maybe you are working to apply those strategies right now, but I feel like through the process, at the very least, you're going to come to the realization that you never needed them to begin with, and that actually you just organically as you are is fine and is actually what people, or the right people, want, right? And I feel like this process is happening, and it might actually be happening organically through, like, the relationships that you have in your life right now. Could be a specific person, like female figure, who's helping with that. Like this Queen of Cups could represent multiple different influences in your life. And I say female because it's the queen, but really, like, any kind of maybe, like, figure who could have been compassionate or gentle towards you, or in some way representative of, like, a mother figure in some, like, your relationship with your mother, like, again, might be very important here. But, like, I'm not to get Freudian about it, but, you know, but our parental relationships do influence, like, the way that we interact with people. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with realizing that a dynamic that you had with a parent is influencing relationships that you have in your life, right? Like, that's just how it be. But the point is that this Queen of Cups can represent multiple different figures in your life. Some of them having a more positive influence, some of them maybe having a more negative influence, but ultimately all sort of like revolving around this particular quote unquote issue that you might feel that you've always had with, again, like, communication. And I just feel like you're in the process of realizing that you don't need these strategies. You don't need someone to tell you how to be. There's nothing wrong with how you are, and you actually already know what you're doing in life. Like, I feel like someone made you feel like you didn't know what you were doing, or the world, because the world, like, listen, like, look, the world likes to be like, y'all don't know what you're doing. Let me tell you how to live your life, so you can give me money, right? Like, and there's nothing wrong with offering a truly valid service and getting money in return for it, but it's more like the incessant implication over and over again that we receive from, like, advertising and things like that, that we are not enough and we need products and things to make us enough. Did I talk about this already in this reading? Because I might have, but I also think I talked about it in the last reading. That's been coming up a lot lately. But, like, yeah, the idea that it's kind of drilled into us from a young age through consumerism, basically, that we're not enough and we need to pay to be enough. And that payment can also be in our time and in our belief that we need someone else to show us the ropes. Yeah, and I feel like you're learning that you don't need that in some area of your life. You might have studied hard in so many different areas of your life. You might have been someone who, like, really liked to study things to understand them, and liked when something was easily, like, you might have been more of, like, the math and science type as opposed to the, like, literary type. But I only mean that in the sense that there might have been a comfort for you in the idea that, oh, okay, like, if I just learn these rules and then I apply these rules, I'll get this particular outcome. Cool. I feel comfortable with that. I like that. It's satisfying and it's also predictable, and that's nice. And then didn't know how to apply that to other things like relationships with people, and maybe felt like, oh, okay, so I need to study that too, right? Okay, here's how men are and women are and how we can interact, or here's how people interact, you know, in this context and in that context, and if I say these things or do these things, this is how it'll work out. I click option A, and that person responds with response B, and I know that that's how it'll work out. but obviously recognizing that that's not how life generally goes, you know, like interacting with people is a complex and nuanced thing. And the more that you get to know someone, the more often you do learn to read them and learn to interact in ways that are more satisfying for both of you. But it's still messy, and people still change, and it's not all that easy to get the same results. Sometimes you just need to be down with the uncertainty, down with the complexity of another person, and be open to learning that consistently along the way, right? And you might be coming to the realization that you are just gonna have to roll with that. But also maybe that you yourself, because it doesn't have to be in a specific relationship with other people, with another person or other people in general. It can also be with yourself in terms of realizing, oh, I might also surprise myself sometimes. Like, maybe I'm not that easy to pin down either. Maybe there are things about me that have been changing as well. And I just feel like there's an opening up to just going with the flow in those kinds of situations, whether in your relationship with others or yourself, and being able to, and in life, and opening up to the idea that it's okay if there are some uncertainties, that maybe some misconceptions you had around those things in the past, where, say, you said something and you didn't get a response you expected, like, you really internalized that and you thought, okay, I did wrong, I did bad, I need to do right in the future, right? Like, the idea that things are very black and white, and that, okay, like, someone didn't respond in the way that I thought that they would when I said that, so I did something wrong. Okay, like, what do I have to do? Instead of being like, oh, okay, well, what happened there? Oh, like, maybe that person was in a bad mood, or maybe that person has some insecurities I don't know about, or, you know, maybe I didn't pick up on something, but that's okay. Like, you don't have to be you don't have to know, you know, everything about a situation or about a person in order to interact with them. It's just like, sometimes things happen, right? And it's okay to let those things go, and also to work through them, right? And again, this might be about yourself as well, and how you move through the world, because I think you might be realizing as well, like, maybe you don't have to overthink things as much. I really feel like this is coming down to you having a perspective shift that allows you to not overthink yourself and not overthink the world in general, but rather move through life in a more playful, curious way that allows you to have more organic, satisfying interactions with life that doesn't require as much certainty. And yeah, you're just getting more comfortable with uncertainty, with also who you are and how you are, and learning to accept that and hold that alongside also accepting, that maybe not everyone will accept you as you are, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, right? It just feels like undoing certain misconceptions you've had about yourself from a long time ago, you know, when you were younger, and when things like that sunk in more deeply, when things like being told that you were wrong in some way had more of an influence on how you saw yourself and the world, and stuck more easily, you know. With the King of Wands as well on the bottom of the deck, like, I do feel like this is about something to do with charisma, something to do with being outgoing, something to do with taking action in your physical realm. And, like, the King of Wands is, like, he's a go-getter, he's active, he's charismatic, he has charm. And I feel like it's almost like you are learning how you are charming in your own way, and also how to more readily access that charm naturally, not from a strategic way where you're just, like, thinking about it, but from a way of just, like, oh, like, I am charming, I have charm, and it's like having the confidence to go through the world and use it, you know, to go through the world and be it, and not think about it too much, because you never actually had to begin with, you know. It was actually the overthinking that stopped you from going out in the world and just being your natural, charismatic, charming self. Yeah. And I wonder for some of you if there was, like, a specific thing that led you to believe that you had to, like, learn people better, or, like, learn how to be a person better or something like that. But it's not the case. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, but it's definitely like a self-acceptance and a reframing of how you've always seen yourself that's taking place here. And your younger self is wanting you to be able to take the strengths that you've always had and believe in them more and utilize them more just for your own benefit, right? To see yourself in a different light, but also to be more chill about the world. So, like, yeah, I get the sense, like, there was just, like, a lot of anxiety in the past that maybe kept you, again, like, held back from certain things or from, yeah. And you're learning through this process to let go of some of that, to not hide in work so much, if that's something that you've been doing, and to, but, yeah, I don't know. It's just owning who you are, really. Like, yeah, just stepping into your confidence by realizing how overthinking has gotten in the way of that. And actually, when you're not overthinking things, when you're just being yourself, that's when you shine. That's when your confidence comes out. That's when you are the person that you always wanted to be already. You know? You just have to let yourself be that by not overthinking it, honestly. It's like the idea that, like, someone, like, I'm thinking of, like, a specific example where someone's, like, playing the piano or something, or, like, playing some kind of, I don't know, playing something, like an instrument or something, and, like, but they're not flowing with it, so they're just getting, and they're like, okay, like, wait, no, I have to, okay, it's this note, and it's that, and then I have to, you know, but then, like, if they just sat down and were, and, like, maybe they, like, oh, yeah, like, performance anxiety. Like, okay, like someone's in front of their, like, piano teacher, or they're in front of an auditorium, and they're like, oh, okay, wait, shit, how do I do this? Like, okay, so I played this note, and then that one, but they're not flowing with it, because, like, they're anxious about it. But then, like, you know, they just sit down at home in front of the piano without thinking about it, and, like, just casually just, like, play the whole tune perfectly, right? It's like, you know how to do the thing. You are the thing already, but you get in your own way thinking too much about it because you're too concerned with how other people perceive you in the moment. And that's natural. So many of us, no matter who you are or, like, what you've experienced, like, so many people know that feeling. I know that feeling. Just not being able to do what you want to do when you're being watched. But I feel like you're coming out of that fear. You're coming out of that overthinking. You're coming out of that, and you're shifting into a place where you can learn to flow with life, so that you're just more consistently that confident person who just knows what you're doing, and you believe it, right? And you believe it, and you can access that person in more situations than maybe you used to. Love that. Okay, so let's get some quote cards then. So let's get 3. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's get 3. Or 4, because, yeah, it's always, I said 3, and then every group has given me 4. That's always how it goes. Okay, so we have these 4 cards. We have this one with happiness is a choice. It's not always an easy one, from Illusions by Richard Bach. We have I don't love people. I love art, but we need people to make the art. And this says, I liked the imaginary people on the entertainment feed way more than I liked the real ones, but you can't have one without the other, from All Systems Red by Martha Wells. I mean, this is just the energy I was reading, and I just got the example with that one of, like, someone who maybe even prefers interacting, like, with fictional characters better, because it's like, or like in a video game when you have dialogue options and you can just, like, choose them, and then if you choose the wrong one to get, like, a character to like you can just go back and, like, choose differently. And it's like, oh man, I wish I could do that in real life. Like, I wish I could just, like, redo, undo, whatever. But again, that's that overthinking. That's, like, getting in your head about, like, oh shit, I said the wrong thing, now everything's ruined. But it's like, I mean, yeah, maybe on some level this life is like a video game, but it's not. It's also not. Like, it's, you didn't ruin anything. You know, you can always there's always the next moment and the next moment and the next moment to recover, to have a conversation, to be like, oh, wait, sorry, did that hurt your feelings? Can we talk about it? Like, things like that. Like, We also have this one, which says, different isn't bad, it's just not the same, from Anne with an E. Yeah, and I feel like you're learning this not only with regards to other people, but about yourself. Like, you might have always been different. And that might be where you got this anxiety from, this feeling that you weren't good enough. You might have always just been different. And you're learning that different isn't bad. It's just not the same. So the ways that you interact with the world might not be the same as the way someone else does, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its own unique, beautiful charm, your interaction, the way that you are. It does. And yeah. And I feel like that's why, you feel like, oh, I'm different, so I don't know how to interact with people, and I don't like that. It's like, no, you're different. That doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, so you have nothing to fear. And again, maybe you have had difficult interactions with people in the past. Maybe you were bullied. Maybe you did have people who put you down. That wasn't right. That was their fucking problem, That's not cool. That's not okay. But I also feel like some of you maybe continued bullying yourself after the fact, and that's not okay either. And take that as it resonates. It's not going to be the case for everyone, but still, I just want you to know that. We also have this one with, you don't forget the face of the person who was your last hope, from The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. Interesting. So maybe there is a specific person. And I almost feel like I'm going to put this over here with the Queen of Cups and the Page of Swords. Like, maybe there is someone specifically who became, like, a mentor to you, or who was a friend when you needed them to be, or, like, stepped in to show you. Maybe you're in that process now of learning that, and there's a person who's helping you sort of see that about yourself. But it also could be both ways, like the other way around as well, where maybe you've also been that last hope, or that hope for someone else in living your life the way that you do, showing other people that they can be different and successful as well. That might be both things might be true. You might have had people in your life who have been that last hope for you, been that hope for you, showed you how to be yourself, and you might have also been that person for other people, and you might be that person for other people right now. Yeah, but you're also learning, like, happiness is a choice. It is not always an easy one. It's like, you're learning to choose to see yourself differently. You're learning to choose to see the world differently. You're learning to choose to be more optimistic about things rather than fatalistic, or rather than catastrophize something. Because I feel like you might be someone who's been very hard on yourself when you've encountered something that you have not easily grasped. For some of you, maybe being a very studious person, maybe you always also just, like, naturally kind of smart, and you there were certain things that you just got, right? And so when you found something that you just got and understood, you just went with that, and you were like, okay, this is my thing. Cool. But because you were, so good at that thing, you might have gotten out of practice of not being so good at things. So then when you encounter things that you're not so good at, you're like, oh God, like, every step that you take feels like, everything that you do feels like a mistake, and maybe every quote-unquote mistake that you make feels like a big deal, because it's like, oh, I'm out of practice, like, I'm not used to feeling this, like, I have the things that I'm good at, and I do them, and, like, I do a pretty good job. So when I'm encountering something that's, like, out of that realm of experience, I'm like, whoa, okay, how do I handle making mistakes again? Like, because, like, I get the sense that you are very smart, and I get the sense that you have either worked very hard to be that smart, or you just are. Both of them are great. Doesn't matter what the case is for you. Just two different experiences. Also, what does smart even mean? Like, all of it's subjective. But in some way, you are very smart, and you know this. But you don't like feeling stupid. I'm just gonna say that. You don't like feeling stupid. And sometimes in situations that have been out of your comfort zone, you feel stupid, and so you're like, oh, I'm gonna avoid that. I'm going to avoid that, because that is when those wounds of feeling bad and wrong, of feeling inadequate, come out. And again, that might have been something that was drilled into you by society, or by bullying, or by people who didn't understand you. And, the theme of being misunderstood is coming out a lot in these readings, but I feel like that's something that we all experience in some way, especially as children, Because as children, we're also still learning ourselves, and we're learning how to communicate. And no, the adults in our lives don't always understand us. And, that's kind of normal, right? It's like we grow from babies who have to, like, scream and cry, and adults, have to learn how to interact with us in order to give us our needs. We don't have words, so we can't tell them verbally. We start to gain our language. Some of us, and some of us, like, there's people of all different abilities. So, like, there's some people who might never gain the ability to talk, and they have to learn to communicate in different ways. And sometimes we gain the ability to communicate, but we don't feel like we have the command over it that other people expect us to, or we feel clumsy about it, And growing up, that can really get into our psyches because it feels so dire in the moment to be able to not be able to communicate, because when you're young, you're so reliant on the people around you. It's really a matter of survival. And as you grow older and become more responsible for yourself, more able to advocate for yourself to get the things that you need to be on your own, you feel more self-sufficient, and you feel like, okay, I don't have to rely on other people, thank God, right? But then there are some places in life where we still do need to rely on other people, where our communication skills are important. And if we feel like we didn't develop enough confidence in that growing up, we might shy away from situations that could cause us to feel that way again, that we did when we were kids and we couldn't get our point across, we couldn't get our needs across, and they weren't met, and that felt like dying. And it's like, now, that you don't have to be in that situation all the time because you don't rely on your parents or other adults anymore. You're like, okay, cool. Like, I don't have to engage with that. But it's like, there's some cases when you still do. And you don't want to do that because you feel stupid, because you feel silly, because you feel like a kid again who is misunderstood by everyone around you, and that hurts. But that's something, like I said, that I feel like you're having a perspective shift around. Like, you're realizing that, you're becoming aware that that's what's holding you back, and you're starting to let it go because you're realizing, oh wait, I don't feel bad about myself anymore. I don't feel like I'm not enough anymore. I actually feel like maybe I'm just fine. And knowing that, I can go out in the world and, make all the social quote unquote mistakes I want, but also maybe I just am fine. Like, maybe it's not. Maybe the other shoe isn't going to drop. I feel like some of you have felt like the other shoe is going to drop in some kind of context where you feel like you don't know what you're doing. So you're going to like almost like imposter syndrome. Like, you're just going to get to a certain point where, like, oh, wait, I can't hold up the facade anymore. I'm actually weird and terrible, and everyone's going to notice. And then I'm going to, like, be ostracized, or I'm going to be back to square one, or whatever. I don't know. Like, and that's just not the case. And I'm going to be real with you. I don't think you see yourself very clearly, whoever you are. I think that's what this perspective shift is around, really. Is you're going to start to see yourself and others more clearly. And your younger self wants you to, because your younger self wants to be like, hey, remember me? I was fine, actually, the way I was, Like, you don't have to be the same person that you were back then, but you can also recognize that the person you were back then was just fine. You were just a kid. You were growing up, You can be easier on yourself. Okay. So I hope that made sense. I'm not going to lie, during this reading, as I was talking, I felt like, are any of the words I'm even saying making sense? But sometimes that happens when it just, like, the flow kind of overtakes me and I'm just saying words and I'm like, okay, well, I hope they make sense to someone, right? But I guess the TLDR is you're a very charming person. You have a lot of natural charisma that comes from you just being yourself. And it's time for you to stop overthinking that, to recognize that you are fine the way you are. Okay, that TLDR was too long, so I'm going to do it again. TLDR, stop overthinking things. You don't need to. You can just get out there and be yourself, and you're fine, and there's actually nothing wrong with you. And wait, okay, no. Before I end this, I have to say one more thing. Because I've been feeling like, am I communicating this properly? Is this making sense? And I've been feeling like, have I said enough? Do I need to, how do I end this properly? Almost like there's something more to say, or like I messed something up somewhere and I need to redo it. And I restarted the ending, like the closing of this reading multiple times, which I never do. So I feel like you might not only overthink interactions when you're in them or before them, but also after the fact, where you're like, oh, did I communicate that right? Did I say the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Well, you know, I think you might be driving yourself a little crazy. And I feel you might be at the point where you're just sick of it and you're just like, nah. Like, I've got to change my focus. I've got to, like, whenever you feel that overthinking come on, just, like, be like, okay, I hear it, I see it, bye, I'm not going to indulge this anymore. Because there's a certain point at which you end up recognizing that it's not helpful, and it's also not true. It's just a perspective, right? So again, like, this perspective shift, I feel like it's around just thinking less, honestly. Just not overthinking things. Like I am right now. I'm overthinking things so much, but I feel like I'm not to blame it on you, because I have it in me as well, but, like, a lot of the times when I'm doing these readings, I take on the energies of other people, and I feel like I'm living their life in that moment. And I feel like living your life, I'm like, man, my mind is tired. I'm sick of it. I want to move on. And I feel like you are too. You're ready to move on. You're ready to just be yourself. Just be, just be playful. Have fun. I'm excited for you. Making that choice to be happy. Not always an easy one. I get it. I know it. But anyway, let me close this out before I just talk forever. Thank you so much. I hope this resonated. If it did, please leave a like, comment, subscribe. I would love to hear from you about how it resonated. And also, please feel free to check out our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com, for personal readings, for also hypnosis or human design. And I hope you have a wonderful life. And I'll see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye. Hi, Group 4. If you selected this T-ball, I think it is actually, and the death card, then you're in the right place, and this is your reading. If you missed it during the group selection, we did go over the traits of the inner child, a part of you that's coming through, and so if you need more confirmation and you want to go back and check that out, please do, just in case you completely skipped the group selection. So I talked about things such as that I got the sense that whoever this part of you is that's coming through experienced some, like, kind of transformation during their younger years, maybe even had, like, a really, like, a lot of life-changing things happen during their younger years or things like that. How the outdoors was important. But yeah, go check that out if you want to hear more about that. We're going to jump right into the messages, though, from your inner child. And as I said in the other groups and in the intro, this could be any age, but just a lot younger than you are now. And we're going to get any wisdom that they might be bringing, or any messages that they might be bringing about, like, how this time in your life impacts you now, how it's whatever they really want to say, honestly. So let's get into it, Group 4. Let us see. What does your inner child want to say? And I'm getting, for some of you, this is definitely, like, maybe even an older teenage version of you. Not for everyone, but that didn't come through for every group, so I'm going to say it here. For some of you, this is specifically like an older teenage version of you, and if that's you, and if that's confirmation, then you'll know. But yeah, let's see. What does this version of you want to say? Okay, we have the Ace of Swords and the Judgment card coming out together. What is this? What is Group 4's? The Magician. Oh, okay. Yeah. What? The World and Ace of Wands. Okay. With the Seven of Pentacles on the bottom of the deck. I just heard you have been waiting a long time. I don't know for what, though. Okay, so Ace of Swords and Judgment together. I'm going to start with the Magician, though, that came out here, because I feel like the Magician is really representing you. Because I feel... So the first thing I got with the Magician was Adam Parrish. I don't know if any of you have read The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. It's a book series. If you have not, then this Magician card is reminding me of one of the characters, Adam Parrish. And it is because in the series, he is associated directly with the Magician card because the series does include tarot in it, actually, as a part of the story. So, but with that association, okay, a few things are coming through. First of all, Adam Parrish, I'm getting a sense of someone who's very independent in one way or another. Maybe because you've had to be. For some of you, you might have a streak of hyper independence even. You may have experienced certain things growing up, like some heaviness in terms of, there's a couple things coming through. Like, specifically with the character of Adam Parrish, he does experience an abusive dynamic in his childhood home, and also poverty as well. For some of you, that may be the situation that you came from. That might be something that you did experience in your youth, that you maybe had to take yourself out of, that you've maybe had to find ways to do better for yourself, right? To get yourself into a better situation. And really become like a self-made person, right? Maybe you didn't have a lot of support growing up one way or another. For some of you, it could have also been like a death of someone significant to you, maybe a caretaker, maybe a parent. Maybe you grew up without parents or without a lot of support in some way. In just that maybe something like that happened when you were young and forced you to grow up in a way that you weren't ready to, or in a way that, just generally you don't want to have to do that as a child, right? So that could be the case for some of you. Not necessarily everyone, but with that vibe coming through with the Magician, I do feel like there's definitely an independence here, and maybe also, like I said, like that Adam Parrish kind of like having to really almost like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that kind of thing, because you had no choice, because you had to be there for yourself, or you didn't have a lot of support, or things happened that required you to support yourself in some way. And with the Ace of Swords and Judgment here, I feel like there might be some judgment that you faced or that you have with when it comes to how you view yourself and how you view your upbringing, or how you view like the way that you grew up. You might have faced a lot of judgment externally, but you also might have some of your own judgments around your childhood that you're needing to overcome. There's like a cycle, I just heard like a cycle of tragedy even, that you're closing out here. Like you're ready to start a new adventure. And okay, this scenario again might be metaphorical, and it might not be, maybe your situation wasn't as extreme as this, but regardless, we're not here to compare situations. Regardless of whatever it is, I feel like there's like judgments or things around your past that are causing you some pain, or that have that it's time for you to transform and move past. And you're working through that now, but it's like the idea of like Adam Parrish in the Raven Cycle being someone who has a lot of insecurities and a lot of difficulty dealing with the realities of his past. He feels insecure about growing up in poverty because he has aspirations to get out of the town that he grew up in. He has aspirations to be on his own, to be responsible for himself, because he has felt under the thumb and under the control of his father for so long in a way that was really abusive. And obviously he wants to get out of that situation. And he also has internalized a lot of dislike for himself and for where he came from, and for the like sort of kind of people that he's associated with, being poor and in the South, like the more like redneck kind of stereotype. And that comes out a lot in his internal dialogue. It comes out a lot in the actions he takes, in how he simultaneously wants to run away from his past and deny it, and then also feels like he can't escape from it. And that might have been a push and pull that in some way you have been experiencing for a while, in terms of wanting to remove yourself from your past, but then also feeling very stuck in it because it's almost like being unable to let go of judgments that you might have heard and internalized around who you are, around how you grew up, around the circumstances that you faced in your life. And I do feel like with the magician here, you're stepping into your power now, honestly. And for some of you, this is coming up because you are becoming that magician now. You're becoming that person who's like, you've got all the tools, you've got everything you need. It's up to you to make that choice, to end the cycle, to step into a new one, and to take the baton basically of your life and begin that new adventure and it might be even like an internal way, letting go of so many of the judgments that you've had of the ways of like almost like feeling stuck in your past, feeling like there's a part of you that will always be held down by it, and just really like closing the lid on it. Like I got the really specific image of like someone like closing the lid on like a jar or something and then like throwing that jar away, like, or like tossing it very far away from them, something like that. Like, yeah, like you're done with that. And the sense of waiting that I got is that maybe you've been waiting to feel free of your past for a long time. Maybe you've been waiting to close this cycle down for a long time. And you feel like, for some of you, it could have been like building up wealth slowly so that you could eventually like move out of the town that you live in, or so that you could get like access to education that you've wanted to for a long time. Like with the Seven of Pentacles here, maybe you've been biding your time, and this is saying you're ready. Whether the tools that you've been building up have been internal or external, physical or emotional, both maybe, you are ready to end that cycle and start a new adventure. You're ready to be this magician. You're ready to move beyond whatever was holding you down in some cases. That might have been, for some of you, very dark. That could have felt very dark. That could have felt very difficult. You might have been through multiple difficult cycles growing up. I feel like you are just now actually growing past a lot of that, and through the efforts that you've made to do that. Again, whether it's the efforts of like physically getting yourself in the position where you can move out of a situation, or, and maybe both, mentally. And I feel like for a lot of you, it's the mental aspect is the most important, and the last component to add to this mix is mentally being able to remove yourself from the toxic cycles that maybe have kept you feeling like, I'll never be good enough, or someone like me isn't meant for this or isn't meant for that, or I can't do this, I can't do that. Like the limiting beliefs, the judgments on yourself and on others like you, or in others that you perceive yourself in, that you're just done with. That's kind of a vibe for actually a lot of the groups in different ways. It's very interesting. It's all coming through in different ways, but there's definitely there's a heavy feeling with this group. That I sense has to do with, like I said, either the circumstances of how you grew up in general, or something difficult, maybe even just one specific difficult thing that happened when you were younger, that you've held a lot of judgments about, like you've judged yourself harshly for, or been judged harshly for. And you're just now stepping into your power to just close that cycle, to say enough's enough, to say we're not thinking that way about ourselves anymore. We're not thinking that way about how we grew up anymore. We're not using that as an excuse. And I say that and that sounds harsh, but we're not using that as an excuse or as a reason to not take new chances, to not start something new, to not do the things that we really want to do. Because yeah, there's definitely like with the Ace of Wands here, like that to me, it's always like, it's like someone's handing you the baton and you have to take it and start running. Like it's up to you to take the opportunity that's being handed to you, to start a new adventure, to start something new, to take new action. For some of you as well, there's like possibly a cycle of like addiction, or a cycle of toxicity or negativity that you just have been running through since this thing happened in your life, or since childhood, that you are finally bringing to a close now, that you are finally saying like, okay, I'm going to break this cycle and take a new action. Because what does breaking any cycle require you to do? It requires you to do something different than what you did before. And I feel like a lot of the mental like judgments and negativity that you've held around yourself, around your past, have prevented you from breaking that cycle, because you slip into these thoughts and then you just do the same things over and over again. You respond to it differently. You're now getting the power to, you have these tools. You might have even been building up tools because you knew this was something that was causing you a problem, and you've been working towards breaking free. You've been waiting for this for a long time, right? You've been waiting to finally close the cycle out for good. But it's taken some time because you've needed to build up the tools. You've needed to build up the resources. You've needed to take the time that it's taken to move through this thing once and for all. And you're just finally at that point. So this part of you is coming up again because there could be certain things that you've suppressed that need to, and maybe you've been experiencing this lately, that you've been, some memories that you might have avoided, things that you might have avoided thinking about, or things that you've once shied away from within your own self or judged harshly within your own self are coming up again and again for you to make the choice to see them differently, to make the choice to think about them differently, to make the choice to respond to them differently once and for all. Because you're finally ready to do that. You're this magician here. You're ready to do that now. And that will, again, like, it requires you to say, okay, enough's enough. This cycle's over. I see what's happening here. I see the old pattern. I know how I usually respond to it. I'm taking a different action. I'm responding to it differently. And that is making all the difference. And you might not understand this consciously, but I feel like this is a process that has been building up for you for a long time. Like, you might have already started taking different actions. I feel like it takes time sometimes to let those new actions take hold and become new habits, and for you to see the fruits of that, for you to see the results of that, for it to become easier and easier. But that's what's happening now. And in its own way, it's almost like you're going through the inverse of whatever this transformative experience you had when you were younger was. It's like if you had a difficult transformative experience where like something was never the same for you after something happened, or after you realized something about your childhood that reframed it for you, it's like that might have felt very painful and scary, whenever that happened. And now you're coming out on the other side of it, no matter how many years it's been, you're coming out on the other side of it, going through a new kind of death, a new kind of transformation. One that transforms you from the space that you were in after that happened to, not to who you were before, but to something new, that's gentler, that's stronger, that is ready for anything, that is ready to be a new person in the best possible way. And that's why this part of you is coming up to kind of say their final goodbyes, to say, hey, like, yeah, like, this is who we were, this is what happened, this is what we went through, and now it's time to move on. Now it's time for me to say goodbye, because you're someone new now. I just heard in my head Euclid by Sleep Token. Specifically the part that goes, the night belongs to you, this bough is broken through, I must be someone new now for me. Yeah, and it's almost like they're saying goodbye to maybe someone from their past, but also maybe to an old version of themselves, because the song itself is really about transformation. It's about that moment of deciding, okay, like, we're ending the cycle, I'm moving on. Enough's enough. And you're here, you're ready to do that. And this part of you wants to say goodbye, honestly. Because it's like, yeah, you don't need me anymore. You don't need to dwell on me. You don't need to think about me in the same way that you used to. You know, it doesn't mean that you'll never think about it, but I think your perspective is changing because you're actively taking the steps to change it, because you're saying, like, I deserve to move on. I deserve to see myself and see my life in a different light now. And I'm going to get some quote cards to add to this message. So let's get 4. 1, 2. get 2 more, please. Okay, thank you. 3, 4. All right. So we have first this one with, I was looking for a miracle, but I got a story instead, and sometimes those are the same thing. From All the Crooked Saints by Maggie Stiefvater. So reading might be significant for you, but like there might be some stories that once you come across them, they will help you end this cycle. There might be some books that have been really influential for you that you're being called to maybe reread or revisit, or new books that could be influential in helping you move on and helping you really fully end the cycle. But I also feel like this is referencing the tools that you've already built, the tools that you already have accrued that might involve some stories, that might involve some books. And also recognizing that sometimes it is just hearing a story that reframes our situation in a new way, that helps us reframe our situation in a new way, that does the trick for you, that just clicks something into place for you. And then you're like, oh, okay, it brings you some kind of peace with something. I've had that experience many times where I've read a story and seen some aspect of the story reflecting back at me something that has been a problem or bothering me for a long time. And it just clicks something into place for me, like a new way of seeing my life, a new way of seeing myself that helps me end some kind of thing that I was dwelling on, that just helps me move forward, honestly. And I feel like if that hasn't happened for you yet, it is in the process of happening. It's about to happen. We also have this card with, she'd been so afraid of the absolute worst that she'd forgotten how she missed the absolute best. Yes. Okay. So in keeping with the idea that we are moving on from a cycle of negative judgments, you might have had this habit, and it could come from some trauma, some PTSD, some things that you experienced in your life, but it might have caused this mental habit for you to catastrophize, to always think about what could go wrong, to always think about the worst possible thing happening to yourself, to others. In whatever situation you're in, you might have the habit of focusing on like what could go wrong instead of just being present in the moment. And I feel like you're stepping into this time where you're ready to experience the best of life, because you've spent so much of your time preparing for the worst or being afraid of the worst, that now you're starting to shift your mindset into, but what about the best? Like, what's the best that could happen? And that's just part of the healing, the parts of you that have been trained to be on guard, right? In whatever way that you've been on guard. I feel like those are just, you're coming to a place where you're ready to let those go again, because there's a new adventure here for you, and you're ready for it. Like, you want it, you know? This is you coming out on the other side of something that made you afraid for a long time, and being ready to be unafraid, being ready to just go for it, being ready to take life a little bit less seriously, and just train yourself to expect the best instead of the worst, because maybe you were trained to expect the worst, and you're ready to let that go. We have this card as well, which says, I am a beautiful thing, shaped for fighting, from The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. Again, like, lots of Maggie Stiefvater here, so maybe there's some books by her, like The Raven Cycle, All the Crooked Saints. All the Crooked Saints actually is about people who, I mean, actually, in a way, the Raven Cycle and All the Crooked Saints are both about, like, generational trauma and letting things go from the past and releasing trauma. They handle them a bit differently, but in All the Crooked Saints in particular, that one for me was a very, like, it's a standalone story, not a series, so it's a very quick read, but it was very, just, it's succinctly and masterfully showed this process of people learning to look at and face things that have dogged them for a long time, to finally look at what it is and to have a perspective shift around it, to change their mind, to change their perspective, and learn from it, and finally let it go. Because what it is this family of saints who live in a desert in Colorado, and people come to them because looking for miracles, basically. People come to them looking for a way to get unstuck from something that's been keeping them stuck for a long time. And what they do as saints is they perform a miracle on the person who comes to them, and then the person has to perform a second miracle in order for the process to be complete. So what it is, we find out, and this is minor spoilers, but I think, no matter what, the experience of reading it is worth it, so you should read it anyway. But we find out the first miracle that they perform is that they make the thing that's making the person stuck, they make it literal. So the person, it's like a magic. The person embodies in some way the fear, the pattern, the habit that they have been experiencing that's been keeping them stuck in a concrete way, in a way that they cannot look away from, in a way that impacts their everyday life. And then they have to take a look at that manifestation of the thing that's keeping them stuck and learn from it, and learn in such a way that they let it go, that they break that curse. It's almost like the saints make the first miracle makes the curse, quote unquote, real, tangible, visible in a way it wasn't before. And then the person themselves has to then look at it and say, oh, that's what's keeping me stuck. That's what I have to do. And until they can do that, they live with it. They can see it, they experience it in a more tangible way. But if they don't change their mindset about it, if they don't change their way of being and their way of interacting with it, they stay stuck that way until they do. And it's really a great story about how people can come together and share their stories with each other, and in doing so, help each of them get unstuck. Because it's like the idea that the people who are dealing with their own issues don't always know how to get unstuck, but they can look at someone else's and be like, oh, well, maybe if you just, did this instead of that. Maybe if you thought about it this way, then that way. What about this perspective? They can see other people more clearly than they can see themselves. And so that's why interacting with other people, getting other people's opinions and perspectives helps you break free from your own perspective and gives you a new lease on life. That's why stories are important. That's why I feel like for you, engaging with stories with other people in some way about this situation, instead of avoiding it, whatever it is what's going to help push you over the edge. And it might be something that you've been doing. Maybe you've been collecting stories or gathering stories about people who have gotten out of the situation that you were in, or who have gone through similar things and came out on the other side with a new perspective. But new perspective is what you're looking for, and that is what is helping you close the cycle with this Ace of Wands here. And maybe All the Crooked Saints will be a story that will help you in some way. So I would say maybe check that out. The Raven Cycle as well, but I don't want to get too in the weeds with talking about these stories. We also have one more quote here to get to. And this is, "Be not too eager to deal out death in the name of justice, fearing for your own safety. Even the wise cannot see all ends." This is from The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. And yeah, I feel like that's a hint as to what we are leaving behind here, what cycle we are closing. And that cycle is fearing the worst, honestly. Is fearing the worst instead of looking forward to the best, instead of living in the present moment and not thinking too much about the future or the past. We are leaving behind the feeling that we need to deal out judgment on other people in order to avoid being judged ourselves. We're leaving behind the idea that we need to judge other people who have been in similar situations to us so as to distance ourselves from things that we feel ashamed about. And we are facing that and moving forward with the comfort that it's not up to us. We don't need to be that judgment for ourselves. Oh, and yeah, and it's almost like there's this tendency to judge that comes from this feeling of I need to judge or be judged. And there's also this feeling of feeling like you are responsible for judging yourself. You are responsible for, I need to punish myself for this. I need to judge myself for this. I need to make myself better because I'm not good enough because XYZ. And in turn, also turning that out on other people as well. And one way that you might make this more clear for yourself and it might make it easier for you to end the cycle is sometimes it's harder for us to notice the ways that we judge ourselves internally. But if you start noticing what you're saying out loud, if you're talking judgment on other people, that is a clue as to what you're saying about yourself internally. So listening to that, catching that more often will help you cut yourself off in your tracks, because this is something that, like I said, you're ready to leave behind, and you might need that externalization of it to show you where you are still doing the thing that you want to stop doing. So noticing it and being like, oh, okay, in this moment, I realize what I'm doing. I'm going to stop. And I'm not going to do it again. And it's just like, the more that you get into the habit of doing that and noticing it and cutting it off, the less you'll do it. And it's also important that when you're ending an old cycle, you're also replacing it with something better, something new, something that's more in line with what you want to be. So maybe instead of, if you stop yourself mid-judgment, where you're making a harsh judgment or criticism of someone else or yourself, if you notice that as well, you start to get creative about how you flip it on its head. You start to get creative about how you turn it around. Like, okay, how can I actually look at this in a way that feels more positive? How can I look at this in a way that is less harsh? And you don't have to go do a complete 180 to begin with, but if you can edge your way towards a more positive way of seeing the thing that you're judging, the person that you're judging, yourself, the incident, whatever it is, you'll get there. You'll build that bridge to a new perspective that will allow you to, again, break the cycle and start a new adventure, start a new way of living, a new way of being, start looking at the best instead of the worst. And also realizing how wonderful you already are, how your experiences may have shaped you in a way. Like, this is almost like an example of that. Like, I'm a beautiful thing shaped for fighting. It's like, I am, like for example, if you're someone who grew up being combative or like in a combative environment, and you want to distance yourself from that because you're ashamed of it, because you're like, oh, there's something wrong with me because, my family, we didn't treat each other right, and I'm ashamed of that, and I want to distance myself from it. So like, I judge really harshly people who are who get into arguments a lot, and people who like get into altercations with each other. And it's like, yeah, okay, like there's obviously a conversation to be had about like, if you went through abuse and things like that, like that's not okay. And yeah, you deserve to be treated better. But at the same time, there's also shame around, oh, this was wrong. I was raised wrong, and maybe learning to see certain things like that in a different light, like learning to see how things shaped you in a way where you have certain strengths, where some things might have been judged really harshly. Like sometimes things feel so shameful because other people don't understand them. And the answer isn't necessarily like leaving behind that thing and then taking on other people's judgment of the thing. Sometimes it's like, I can leave behind the thing, but not take on like a really harsh or pitiful perspective that will make me feel bad about how I am and how I was. It's like, maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe there's a different way to look at it. Maybe there's something that will allow you to let things go more fully, as opposed to moving from a place of, oh, this is fine, this is just the way the world is, to, oh wait, that wasn't fine, it was bad actually, and that was actually bad, I am bad. And then moving from a place outside of that where you're like, actually, I don't need to make my life about that past. I don't need to make my life about that thing being bad. I don't need to make my life about me being bad. I can actually move forward and not think about it at all. Not think about it in those terms, not fight against it, and not see parts of me that were shaped by that as shameful, but rather things that I can take and use as tools alongside the new perspective that I have that leads me to want something different for my life. You know what I mean? If that resonates, it'll resonate. If you get it, you'll get it. If you don't, leave it. It's for someone else. Anything else? No, I think we're done here. So, I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. And if that resonated, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you are interested in a personal reading, we do offer those on our website, sunflowerphilosophy.com. I have that linked below. And we also do hypnosis and human design services as well to help you be your best self however you want to be, not how anyone else wants you to be. And I hope you have a wonderful life, and I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye. Hi, Group 5. If you selected the King of Cups card and this little scratch drawing, then you are in the right place, and this is your reading. In case you completely skipped the group selection, I did go through the traits of the child self that is coming through. So if you want to verify that this is you, go back and listen to that. I talked about how in this group I was getting the idea of a sensitive, maybe potentially misunderstood kid. Father figure might have been important, but there's more in the group selection, so go check that out if you are interested. But for those of you who are ready to go, let's just get right into the messages that your inner child, your child self has for you at this time. And let's see, group 5. Group 5's inner child, which again can be any age, just an age that's likely a lot younger than you are right now. Let's see what's coming through for you. What do you want this person to know? What do you want group 5 to know? Group 5's inner child. Group 5's inner child. What do you want? Do you want this person to know? Okay, we've got the 8 of Pentacles reversed. Interesting. The 4 of Wands and the 10 of Wands coming out together. And 2 more cards. Okay, we've got the 2 of Cups. Interesting. And again, 2 cards coming out together. The 8 of Cups and the 9 of Cups together at the end. All right. And we have the 2 of Pentacles on the bottom of the deck. Interesting. Ooh, with the Lovers almost popping out here underneath that. So just that felt significant. Because it does feel like something to do with like relationships is important here. But I don't know if it's yours or your parents. I say that because we have the 4 of Wands and the 10 of Wands. I feel like here, whoever you are, whoever this version of you is, this younger child, you might have taken on a lot of emotional burdens growing up. I'm not gonna lie. And it could have been around your parents and their relationship. If you grew up in a household where there was a lot of turbulence, potentially, you might have shouldered a lot of the emotional burden for your parents. Like if there was a lot of arguing, you might have stepped in as the mediator a lot. You might have felt, or even if you didn't do that, you might have felt the need to, or you might have felt the need to like do that in your own way, whether that was through actively stepping in to be a mediator during arguments or by stepping in to lighten the mood, to maybe be the person to moderate for everyone else's emotions. Like you had to step in and be like the one who lightened everything up, who made a joke, or you felt like you needed to take things less seriously because like everyone else was taking things so seriously. Like you felt like you need to balance things out, like with the 2 of Pentacles here, like feeling like you needed to juggle everyone else's emotions in some way. And I almost feel like because this 4 of Wands and 10 of Wands came out together. So that's why I'm associating them almost with like the burden of like taking on the burden of someone's relationship, someone's marriage, or of the burden of like the family life or something like that. Also with the 8 of Pentacles reversed here, there could have been a situation where maybe one or both of your parents or like your caretakers were out of work at a certain point. Maybe it was hard to find work. In some way, work was something that was a difficulty. And I feel like this was growing up. Maybe now, too. Maybe there's something now with... It could also be attitudes around work, like maybe negative attitudes around like a job or something that you've taken on now yourself or in some way avoided taking on. I don't know. There's something definitely around some kind of difficulty with like... taking on burdens for other people. And again, like, I almost feel like this wasn't something that was... sorry, I just bumped the table. I almost feel like this wasn't something that was necessarily obvious, or it wasn't something that you did... It's like, I feel like you weren't necessarily someone who threw yourself into the fray, but you more tried to diffuse the situation through methods that wouldn't have seemed as obvious to others, almost like you were working behind the scenes. trying to moderate others' emotions or whatever was going, like, and I almost feel like this could be showing up in a current relationship that you've been in, or in a relationship that you've recently left, as well. So I do feel like there's something with childhood here, obviously, where your inner child is coming through to tell you something. Okay, so either they're describing a situation that you went through as a child that's impacting your current relationship now, or that like a recreation of either your parents' relationship or the way that you functioned in your family unit that's coming up in your current relationship. Or it could also be, I think for most of you this is the case, but it could also be that almost this is the dynamic that's happening now, where you're taking on a lot of burdens in your current relationship, and there's something that your inner child is wanting to remind you of that was different growing up, that you want to go back to or want to revisit, so that you understand what you truly want and what you truly deserve in your relationships in general. It'll vary. But I definitely feel like there's something here about with the Eight of Cups and the Nine of Cups right next to each other, and the Two of, like, I feel like you've taken on some kind of emotional burden that you just don't need to. Like, there's definitely some kind of difficulty with the Two of Cups here in almost like you feel like, oh, it could be for some of you an avoidance of relationships because you feel like it's like avoiding relationships helps you avoid your emotions because you're used to a lot of turbulence happening in relationships, maybe like in past relationships that you've had, which could also stem back to like the relationships you witnessed growing up, where you felt like you've taken on a lot of emotional burden, or you've taken on a lot of the onus on yourself. And it's like walking away from or staying away from that because you want to maintain your own sense of peace, your own sense of satisfaction. And I feel for some of you, this is your childhood self. Because if you've walked away from this dynamic, if you've walked away from a dynamic where you felt overburdened in a relationship, you felt like things weren't working, you felt like you had to be like the moderator or the one who controls your own emotions for the sake of someone else, like if you felt like you were in a dynamic that just wasn't working, you walked away from it, and this is your child self coming through to like commend you for basically like breaking a cycle that maybe you've been in since you were a child, and prioritizing your own peace and your own satisfaction and letting go of something. And if that's not something that you've done, but it's a situation where you feel like you're in and you're having to potentially make that choice, this will be, it'll look different for everyone. So it doesn't have to necessarily be like physically walking away from a specific relationship. It could be walking away from a dynamic in the sense that you change the dynamic by changing how you react to things, changing how you interact with people, changing how you see yourself and view the situation at hand, and thus changing the relationship altogether. For some of you, it might involve ending a relationship, but it's not necessarily going to be the case for everyone. I feel like it's more about recognizing a dynamic that has been perpetuating and choosing to walk away from it for your own peace. And that might be a completely internal thing. And it might be a thing that you do by talking things out, by changing a situation and making it better for yourself, and being honest with people in your life and actively working with people to change that. And it could also look like the relationship that we have needs to change. I need to walk away. I need to be on my own for a while. For some of you, there could be also something around avoiding or avoidance of relationships that could relate to this sort of cycle being present. And so it might not be that you have walked away from a relationship or that you need to, but it's more like you've been in a dynamic of avoiding relationship because of this fear of taking on too much, or because of not knowing if you can, not wanting to have to take on the role of being like the emotionally mature one, because you've been in that dynamic before, or you grew up in that dynamic, and like it's tiring, and you're like, I'm better on my own because I don't have to be that person. But then there's also this, if that's the case for you, it's not the case for everyone, but if it's the case for you, I feel like your inner child might be bringing up this dynamic that you grew up in, because it's telling you this is where that belief comes from, that you will end up taking on the most of the burden in the relationship. It's because that's how you grew up. It's because that's the dynamic you're used to being in, so that you can look at that and recognize how you can shift that if you want to change your relationships or have a different kind of relationship moving forward, so you don't need to be afraid of perpetuating that dynamic again. Yeah. Because I feel like, a lot of you are used to, or did grow up in a situation where you were used to juggling other people's emotions. You were used to being the one who had to bear the weight of everyone else's emotional grievances. And you have, or you are ready to, or you need to recognize that you need to walk away from that way of relating in order to have a better relationship with yourself and more life satisfaction overall. Like the 9 of Cups is a very emotionally satisfied person, and the 8 of Cups is walking away from things that left you emotionally depleted and unsatisfied. And very simply, you either have done that or you are needing to do that. And whatever that looks like for you, whatever the semantics are for you, it'll just look different for everyone, honestly, because I feel like there's a lot of different dynamics that you've perpetuated in your life, whether it's relationships that haven't worked for you or haven't satisfied you, or it's avoiding them altogether because you don't want to continue this dynamic in your life, and then thereby avoiding relationships to the extent that maybe you actually want to learn how to have a relationship that's healthy, that's balanced. Because, there's definitely been an imbalance in some way in your life. And with what was coming through in the traits of the child that was coming through, I did feel like there was an element of this part of your life, of the inner child that's coming through, that had to be an emotional caretaker, had to be emotionally mature for your age, and may have been misunderstood in the context of your family life, whether you were seen as too sensitive and like everyone else around you thought that you needed to chill out, to relax, to not be so sensitive, which, But then for others of you, you might have been sensitive, but maybe through the shaming or through just the way that you express yourself being different from everyone else, you might have also like come across as more stoic, right? Or trained yourself to carry the burden silently, to be that mediator, to not let things impact you, to not react to things in such a way that you suppressed yourself so much that you were perceived as maybe too unemotional, maybe not as emotionally involved. Like, people, when they're angry or upset, sometimes it's comforting to have someone else be just as angry or upset as they are. And when someone else doesn't give that to them, it can make them even more angry and upset, which is not your fault or not anyone's fault for not reacting in that way. But it is something that can make someone feel like that maybe they're wrong for showing emotion the way that they do, right? Now, I'm gonna get some quote cards to get a little bit more information here, because this is one where we might have already covered it. That might be a big bulk of why this is coming through. Again, like, if you already did like break this dynamic, if you become aware of it and you worked to change it, again, this is just your younger self being like, congrats, good work. Like, I'm proud of you. But it also just might be bringing it to your attention so that you fully make the connection that like, oh, this is why I feel this way about things. This is why I avoid these kinds of things, or this is why I've been in this dynamic with this person for so long. You know what I mean? But I want to get 4 quote cards to give us more information and to let us know what else your child self wants you to understand, wants you to know. So group 5, 2 more, please. 2 more quote cards, messages from your child self. Okay, and 2. All right. All right, so we have this card. Lots of colors here, very colorful. And we have the rainbow, like, yeah, for some of you, maybe you like actually have a very colorful, interesting personality, and you might have like dulled it or muted it in your home life in order to keep the peace in some way. Or because like you felt like, okay, like I can't experience my full range of emotions because everyone else around me is like in so much chaos. There's so much chaos. I need to be the one who like reins it in. But like underneath you have a lot of like thoughts and feelings, and like you want to express yourself more artistically. Maybe you're a very creative person and you've suppressed that because of that dynamic, and now you're ready to come out of that. You're ready to walk away from that. You're ready to be you. You're ready to be more outgoing, to speak your mind, to just let yourself not worry about balancing everyone else's stuff. You know what I mean? We have this card with, a morning can start off like any other, but by nightfall, things have occurred that could change a course forever. From Anne with an E. And so, yeah, maybe for some of you, like you've had an epiphany, or you've had like some life-changing moments, or like you've made like, if you made a decision to leave a relationship, it might be like, you know, you started a day just like any other and you were like, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm just going to end this dynamic now. And then you're like, hey, we got to end this, you know? And it doesn't have to be that specific example, but, you know, that's the vibe I'm getting. We also have this card with, I'm unusual and I embrace it. Yeah, I feel like you are unusual maybe, and you might have suppressed that. And for some of you, maybe you suppressed it as well because there was some aspect of you that you felt wouldn't be accepted or would have caused more chaos in your household, or maybe you were working to keep the peace because like there's some aspect of you that wouldn't have been accepted, and so you felt like for some of you, you might have felt like you grew up in a household where love was very conditional, and that might have extended to the way that you've dealt with relationships in your adult life, because it's this feeling of like, okay, like I need to, like a people pleaser energy. Like I need to please this other person. I need to be what this person wants me to be because that's how I always have done things, because I needed to do that growing up, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't get taken care of. I wouldn't be loved. I wouldn't have been, maybe even for some of you, you might have been like kicked out from the house or something like that. I'm thinking of a specific scenario of like if someone, because there's a lot of rainbows here, like if someone is queer and they grow up in a family where that's not accepted, and so like they hide their true personality, their true self, because they want to be safe. And then maybe, you know, growing up feel like they have to continue to do that in order to be accepted and loved in various situations, right? And that's just one example of it, but that could happen in any kind of context, in any kind of household where there are expectations, where love is seen as conditional, where you feel like you have to fulfill certain roles in order to maintain the peace or keep things kosher. You know what I'm saying? We have this card as well with, if that's being queer, then we could do with a bit more queerness in these parts. Wow, okay. From Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. So yeah, like I just said, now in this case, J.R.R. Tolkien is, I believe, using the term queer in the sense of meaning strange. And it's become a term that has been associated with, obviously, like LGBTQ identities in more recent times. It was kind of a slur, right? But at the same time, it's been reclaimed by the community. Personally, I belong to that group and I like the term queer. But in this case, like, yeah, it's just in whatever ways that you've been made to feel strange, or if you are part of like the LGBTQ community, for example, and weren't accepted, like when you were growing up, you are learning that we need more people like you. Like, you being yourself is necessary, actually, is important. And there are people who are excited about that and who want to engage with that. And if you're someone who's held yourself back from things for so long because you feel like you couldn't be yourself, like you had to be something else that people needed you to be in order to be around people, you're learning, or you're being encouraged to open up to the idea that actually, like, there are people who just want you to be yourself, who want you to be who you are, who need you just as you are, that you will serve by actually just being yourself. And you don't even have to think about it, right? Like, you don't have to, like, serve people by, like, actively trying to fit their idea of what someone needs to be. Like, you serve people by being yourself and not trying to serve them, which counterintuitively is a service almost, like, you know? And we have this card with, you have only one life, make the most of it. Yeah. So if you're someone who's, like, taken on burdens for other people, self-sacrificed a lot, suppressed yourself for other people's comfort, again, that might have started when you were a kid, but you're ready to let that go. It's time for you to embrace your unusualness, to change your life. Like, making even just one decision could change your whole life in terms of, like, I don't know if there's something where there's some way that you've been holding yourself back in specific, where if you just make one choice, it'll change the whole course of your life. But that's the vibe I'm getting here, honestly. And just to be yourself. I mean, another very specific example is the idea of someone who's been in, like, a relationship, like a heterosexual relationship for a long time, and realizes that they're actually queer and they are in love with someone else. And, like, obviously that it can be a difficult situation, ending a relationship and being like, actually, this is who I am. And, you know, like, yeah, turbulent, difficult, I mean, listen, I'm optimistic and idealistic, and I think that sometimes things like that can actually go fine. Maybe someone will be understanding. Maybe everyone will be able to adjust easily. But also sometimes that's just not how it goes down. But at the same time, you just need to do it because it's the thing that's best for you, best for everyone involved, really, to have the truth out there, to be able to be yourself. And so, like, the scenario of someone, like, leaving a relationship because they're like, actually, this isn't true to who I am. I need to start being true to you, being true to me, and that means being honest and maybe even hurting some people's feelings, but also ultimately being like, you know, now we can all move forward in the truth. We can all move forward and live the lives that we're meant to live life to the fullest, knowing that we made this hard decision, knowing who we are, knowing what's true, knowing what we actually deserve, and being able to move forward and claim that, right? It's like something like that. That doesn't have to be anyone's specific situation, but it just feels like the energy of this is like knowing when to walk away from things, from people that don't let you be who you are, or even just from the dynamic you have within yourself that doesn't let you be who you are, and stepping into that fully. Stop no longer compromising, no longer trying to balance other people's expectations with your own true self, just being you. Just being you. Not trying to moderate other people's emotions, not feeling reliant on other people's reactions to you, understanding that obviously in the world that we live in, especially if it's something to do with your identity and like how you present in terms of your sexual orientation or like gender or something like that, like, yes, there are places and people and things that might pose a danger to you. Of course, it's not an easy thing to necessarily do. It can be scary, and there can be survival needs that are connected to you staying hidden and wanting to stay safe. However, there's also the element of, like, at what point do you feel safe enough to just be yourself? Can you move yourself into a situation where you are safer? What are the ways in which you can own yourself? What are the ways in which you can start reclaiming your true identity, reclaiming who you truly are, and find ways to stop compromising with the world, honestly, because, like, fuck the people who make you feel unsafe to live as you are, right? Like, I would hate to live in a world where those people dictate how people live their lives, or where anyone dictates how someone else lives their lives, who are just being themselves, you know? Like, I don't want that world to win. I value when people feel comfortable to just, like, be who they are. And in being who they are, I mean, like, being who like, there's a difference between being who you are and trying to make other people be who you want them to be, and just calling that being who you are. Like, someone who's like, well, I just want to disrespect people and, like, take away their rights and tell them that they shouldn't exist. What's wrong with that? That's just me being who I am. That's just my beliefs. It's just how I want to live. It's like, but no, that's you interfering with other people's lives and telling them how they should exist and telling them what they can and can't do with themselves. Like, that doesn't count. That's, like, you feeling threatened by someone else and, like, making your insecurity and your fear their problem when they're actually not trying to do anything to you at all. But when someone is, like, just being themselves, like, they're living their life, they're dressing how they want to dress, they're, like, it's not hurting anyone. It's like, God forbid, right? God forbid we all just get to be who we want to be. Like, and that's the thing, is, like, I think you're ready to just do that, to just be that person, to just be who you want to be, and to realize that you value that above pleasing anyone else, you know? And for most of you, maybe for some of you, your safety is in question, and that's a choice you have to make, and not one that anyone else can make for you in terms of how you interact with your immediate surroundings. And if you are in danger, I hope that you can get yourself into a safe situation, but, you know, you do what you need to do. But for those of you who are like, listen, like, enough's enough, you know, I need to move on from this people-pleasing, this hiding myself, this not being my true self, this belief that hiding myself is somehow more beneficial to other people than me being my true self. Like, for those of you who are looking to move on from that, and you're ready, and you're just like, it's just a matter of me being brave enough to make that step, to take that opportunity, I feel like most of you, you're ready. And this child self of you is like, please, like, free us, free me. I'm ready to embrace me, just as I am, to be who I am, and, like, bring the beauty of that to the people around me, to the world that I'm living in now, because it needs it. Like, we need you to be you. Like, if you're ready to be that light, if you're ready to be that person who's just being you, and shining that in your part of the world, and making it more, like, making it brighter, making it just, like, because I feel like whoever you truly are, whatever you've been suppressing in yourself is good. Like, it's not bad. Like, you might have been made to feel like it was, but it's not. Like, it might cause a stir in the people around you, but if you can weather that, if you are safe enough, and you feel like hiding yourself is killing your soul, like, you only have one life, make the most of it, right? Like, we could do with more queerness in these parts. You're unusual and you embrace it. A morning can start off like any other, but by nightfall things have occurred that could change a course forever. Like, it could change your life, you know? Just owning yourself more fully. So whatever you've been suppressing in yourself, whatever you've been holding back to keep the other people around you happy, that ends now. If you're ready, it's time to stop compromising. Your inner child needs you to stop compromising with the world, and to say, hey, this is me. I just heard this is real, this is me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to let the light shine on me. What is that? That's from Camp Rock, right? Now I found who I am. There's no way to hold it in. No more hiding who I want to be. This is me. Yeah, this is me. But it's Demi Lovato, old classic from Camp Rock. Yeah. Sorry about my singing there. Wait, no, I'm not apologizing. What am I saying? I'm telling you not to compromise and just to be yourself, no matter if it makes people a little uncomfortable. I had to do that too. So I'm not sorry. That was just me being me, okay? All right. So I think think that's it. I think we can end it there. But yeah, like, I feel like there's like a whole colorful, zany person within you that's ready to come out, that's ready to just own your life and just shine. And it's very exciting. And some of you have already made this choice that will help you do that, and some of you are still in the process of making that choice. But I hope you find it in you to do that. I hope that you find ways to own yourself more. I hope that and I hope that the world is kinder to you than maybe you expect it to be as you do that. I hope that you're safe, honestly. I didn't get like a sense of being in danger from this reading, so I understand that for some people that might be the case in terms of like owning who you are. So I don't want to like leave that out, but at the same time, I'm not feeling like a sense of like someone who's in a really dangerous situation. It's feeling more like almost a suppression that's just been a habitual thing over a lifetime that might be difficult to shift, or might have even gone unnoticed or unchecked for a while. That's ready to come to an end, that you're just done compromising with. You're done giving a shit, honestly. And you're ready to just be you. That's what I'm getting for most of you. So I hope that goes well for you. I think that it will be a wonderful world. The more people who are embracing themselves more fully. And I'm excited for you that you are getting to a space where you're ready to do that. And your inner child is also excited for that as well. So it's a time to indulge them. I should stop talking, but I will add on here the specific example of, like, for example, a kid who, like, always wanted to dress really colorfully, but, like, maybe that was afraid to, either because they didn't want to be picked on at school, or that their family wouldn't have approved, or something like that. And now as an adult, you're like out there buying like the most colorful outfits and the most zany kind of looks, and you're just experimenting with it because you can, because you're an adult and you have your own money and you can do what you want, and you care less about what other people would think of that. It's like, that's the vibe here, and I'm so happy for you. Live your best life. Your inner child wants this. They need this. They're excited about it. They're really excited about it. So I hope that resonated. I hope that you found that helpful. Thank you so much for listening, so much for watching. If you want to, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're interested, we do offer personal readings on sunflowerphilosophy.com, as well as hypnosis and human design services as well. So that's linked in the description. I hope you have a wonderful life, and I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye!